On November 5th, 2024, an event happened that no one expected. What turned over the world completely, changing it beyond recognition. Some unidentified object, which did not have time to notice on time, fell directly from space to one of the capitals of the world. It was something indescribable, because a huge shockwave instantly destroyed the island state. The 5 largest powers of the Blue Star, overnight, closed this place from other people and, in order to understand the incident, sent to the island of the best scientists. At this stage, humanity had a new era, which was supposed to bring something new. And this happened, because a year later everything was different in Haichin. One of the guys showed his friend Lin a photo of the girl, asking that he would like to start a relationship with her, and after a while to make his own country be proud. Tears appeared in front of the young man, although his comrade did not understand why some kind of joke turned into something so sad. Looking somewhere, the young man thought about whether this is not the same company. Is he really not at the moment at the epicenter of chaos? The guy remembered that from the moment of the fall of an unknown object has passed for a year, and the world began to resemble a game parallel reality. In one of the residents, new forces and abilities awakened, and someone changed their jobs and gained outstanding abilities. Strange underground creatures awakened from sleep to fight people, so they began to collect resources together and fight for survival. The laws of order collapsed. The laws of the jungle remained. To improve his skills, the young man fights only with fierce animal beasts. The difficulty was that the enemies attracted a ferocious beast of a high level with powerful force. The brother of our hero died tragically, trying to protect the young man with all his might. The young man sacrificed his own life in order to bring the guy out of the secret world. But the plan failed, because they were attacked by monsters who were sitting in ambush. The reason for everything is the Crystal of Ascension. The brothers could not give it just like that, because in the era of chaos, weakness is a original sin. Answering a comrade's question, his friend recalled that on the calendar on November 12th, 2025, if he was interested in this, then he drank too much on the eve. The young man thought to himself that somehow he managed to reborn and return on the day of his awakening 3 years ago. Lin Luo recalled how the manager of the company kicked him out, saying that the actions of the employee contradict the values of their company. The guy thought that Van Ji Chao found the first reason for which it was possible to cling to, because he always wanted to fire the young man from work. In the past life of our hero, this man, after awakening abilities, was transformed into a demon, who collected organs and limbs in exchange for power resources. Van Ji Chao was engaged in the lowest matters, forcing the innocent to do the same. But he did not even believe that he would meet Linu to confront. Colleagues who looked after the departing guy criticized him, noting that he was overestimating their capabilities. In the past reality, the guy beat the manager to half-death. As a result, that day the national awakening began. Our hero, like his brother, remained orphans to survive. They stole. As a result of his brother were convicted for 15 years, and when he came out, Linu life became easier. Shen Zhao was able to make a great contribution to the fight against monsters, and then the guys already performed complex missions together. After some time, a strange incident occurred. Our hero accidentally killed an ordinary person. Then he realized that forces awakened in him. The young man could, without the use of his abilities, directly deprive another person of his level of strength, simply killing someone. Unfortunately, Shen Zhou did not let his brother just destroy people. As a result, evil personalities became even angrier. As a result, the young man could not protect those who surrounded him, those who were supposed to, and both the brothers died. The young man decided that in a new life there would be no helplessness and hatred. If kindness is not encouraged, he will turn to justice through heaven. Linu decided that his enemies would become a stimulus for him, and only he himself would take the throne of the winner. A few minutes later, the program greeted the young man to obtain the strength of the level F. The guy understood that, as in a past life, he would need to go through a task. But there is one advantage. Now he knows what others do not know. Suddenly, our hero heard someone begin to speak compliments to someone. It was Van Ji Chao, who was talking on the phone while the guy was thinking about what this person had the level of D. The manager told someone about the girl, and Lin Lo understood. The time would come when he revenged this man for everything he did. At this time, some stranger in black gloves held a rope in his hands. It was our hero who threw the rope around his boss and stated that he would be ideal as sacrifice. At this very moment, some strange essence appeared next to Van Ji Chao. Our hero knew this is an embodiment, which is inherent only in the abilities of the S-Ural. Thanks to them, a person can cause his double. Turning to the manager, the guy indifferently stated that, unfortunately, it was too late to be treated. At this moment, Lin Lin began to take the strength from the opponent. Thanks to this, the ability from level F jumped to the level of E. The guy did not stop, expecting until the program reports that now he has reached the strength of S. Our hero understood that in his last life, he and his brother needed 3 years to reach level A. And now, in a couple of minutes, he reached the strength with a mark of S. After a moment, the guy began to perform magical actions and scream so that his double appeared. Not much time has passed as a warrior in armor appeared in the room. It was difficult to say whether a man or a car stood in front of a young man, but he looked very frightening. The guy, reading the abilities of this double, understood that even in the era of chaos, this machine would be better than any person. The Dark Emperor has shortcomings. This is intelligence, protection, and range. But even despite this, he has no equal in close combat. The double will not be able to defeat others, but the forces of Lin Lin are compensated. In addition, an increase of 2 meters is what others do not have even with the SSS level. Looking at his faithful assistant, our hero ordered him to immediately get rid of the body. The young man thought that after the onset of Chaos Van Ji Chao, he turned into a real demon, and therefore to die in the bathroom is a worthy death for such a person. Standing near the door of the toilet, Lin Law thought that not a single month would pass before the manager was found. Moving along the street, the guy noted to himself that everyone had their abilities, and even in once empty cabinets, life was in full swing. The young man found his father's name on the phone and remembered that in the last reality, Lu Min immediately after awakening came down with Fan Men, the main beauty of the class. And after that, he killed many innocent people and inspectors in different ways, and also joined the same group. Pressing in the name of Lu Ming, which was in the phone book, the guy decided that this time he would deprive this prankster for the benefit of Hanzhou. Sitting on the couch, Mr. Min said that finally Lin Lin called him his father, while thinking about how good it was to have a double. Turning to the man said that he immediately wanted to get the entire body and mind of Fan Men completely. The Lord of Prayers immediately stated that he fulfilled the desire of his master. Lu Min noted that the double will appear soon, but Fan Men simply cannot miss such a show. And after a minute, picking up the tablet, I read the message from the beauty, which said that she was already on the road. Raising his hands, the man laughed maliciously, saying that while the double is here, he could rule the whole world. A few minutes earlier, our hero told Lu Min that he found the advantages of a S-class double. Because he proposed to meet, the man asked related questions, noting that he was in the hotel and would wait for the guy. Having pushed the phone, the ill-wisher said aloud that he would soon receive not only the secret of the young man, but also the goddess of his dreams. Only a few minutes passed, and the door had already opened in the room and someone's legs appeared. This was our hero, who immediately began to say that he had a meeting, and therefore it was best to hurry. Stepping closer to the man, our hero began to whisper in his ear that his ability is in, and fell silent. Already after a moment behind the ill-wisher, a double of Lin Lo appeared, who did not take any action. Lu Ming felt something was amiss, and therefore turned his head and saw the Dark Emperor. The ill-wisher was about to say something, but did not have time to do this, because he hit him with force. The man did not expect him to be spinning with such force. He hit a wall in which a significant mark remained, after which the system informed our hero that a new ability, which was called robbery, is launched for him. The young man thought that this person can have little inventory, and therefore it is best to use his abilities. The next moment, Lin Lin announced his desire, and the system immediately noted that now the guy gets a book of desires. This was very useful, despite the fact that it acts only 5 minutes after reincarnation, allows you to increase strength, endurance, and luck. Before calling for his double, our hero said that the Book of Desire is a wonderful thing that he did not even think about. The guy did not have to repeat twice. Very soon the Lord of Prayer appeared in front of him. Seeing the desired subject in front of him, Lin Law asked if it was true that they could speak with each other. Having a little hesitation, Vladika confirmed that he was one of the few who is capable of it, and added that, having a Book of Desires in his hands, one can count on the fulfillment of any request. And after a moment he said that simple desires require little energy, and there are many complex ones therefore. If you make a lot of complex ones, you can kill the Lord. The young man was surprised that his double could, since he had the intellect so high that he could even easily give sensible advice. The young man pleased that he could create a simple desire from nothing. It will not take a lot of energy, but will also become useful. Vladika said, If you use a book of desires in relation to another person, energy consumption depends on his will. Our hero thought a little, and then asked what consumption would be if you suddenly need to free the person out of custody. The double replied that this is a difficult task. Firstly, will take some time, and secondly, it will immerse him in silence for a while. Linu said that the most correct decision is to request information about other capabilities of Class S. Looking at the Dark Emperor, who was already returning, the guy thought that he'd gotten rid of the body very quickly. However, the young man was most interested in the clock on the chest of this double, because the arrows at them were in the same position. Answering the question of whether at least somehow doubles with their owners are related, he confirmed this theory, noting that without it in no way, the guy decided that the Dark Emperor had no abilities related to time. They appeared due to rebirth, but he realized that it was better to leave it, and therefore, Linlo decided to start by exploring all the dungeons and secret zones. The benefit of the power is enough. In the corridor stood a young girl who did not understand why she came to the hotel and why she sent a mini-min. Approaching the registration stance, our hero asked that the number 414 was extended for another 7 days and without cleaning, citing the fact that a friend was busy and did not want him to be worried. At this time, Yu Taiji asked the Lord of the Time where her white clock and why his travel trip was postponed. The girl guiltily noted that when she was returning, the unknown took part of her strength, and therefore there was a distortion in temporary space. Having hit the table with his fist, the leader said that he did not think that, having spent so much money, he would fall into such an unpleasant situation. Yu Taiji aroused the ability to travel in time, killed one of the gods to break into another dimension, but, unfortunately, one person from the non-Freenal clan met in his way, and the dumb opponent was able to win. Therefore, Yu Taiji had to activate a time travel, having spent the energy limit of the Lord of the Time from 4,000 to 40, as a result of which it fell into the loop of time. The man understood that he did not even think that it would happen that way. His desire was just to return a week ago to Universal Awakening, and returned a few hours after. Suddenly, the Lord spoke, noting that she feels the power of the King of Time. It seems that someone who is in the city of Hanzhou has her. The brunette noticed that power passed to the man whom the master met on a journey, and therefore she was interested in whether he was striving to find that. And after a moment she added that this is dangerous, because a special force flows in the unknown, and Yu Taiji is given a poorly close battle and abilities almost at zero. The girl understood that it was all complicated, and therefore once again said that she feels that her forces were in some person. The man suggested going to the dungeon to look for former teammates, although the Lord of Time stated that it was better to gain strength. At this very time, an energy flow was twisted next to one of the buildings, which served as a portal for entering the dungeon. The guard warned all those gathered that they could go inside, but you need to be, firstly, neat. And secondly, it is best to break into small groups. Joyful people shouted that a new era had finally arrived, which means that they could arouse the abilities that they wanted. However, there were also dissatisfied, noting that at first one should come up with a strategy, and only then go into the dungeon, because there was a danger there. After a moment, our hero appeared in the middle of the crowd. One of the men screamed to let this guy pass, because there are no more courageous. Looking after Linlo, people whisked how they could skip this guy alone, because he is still very young and therefore inexperienced. Going inside, our hero thought that in a past life he always pushed this moment away, because he was obsessed with fear. But in this life, everything was different. The young man was most optimistic as possible. He knew for sure that he could defeat everyone and everyone who would meet in the way. Being inside, the system told the young man that the damage that he will receive in the dungeon would be eliminated after the exit, and his health would be completely restored. The guy understood that now he has 2 abilities of level S, and therefore need to find a specialty that would be suitable for existing forces. At this moment, Lin Lin drew attention to the Lord, and asked that he could not advise which specialty to choose. The guy recommended paying attention to the magician, citing the fact that the guy, firstly, will be able to quickly go to the next level, and secondly, he will be a specialist in close combat. Our hero did not know that the forces of the level of S could increase the rank of ability. In addition, it seems that the Dark Emperor had his own selfish goals. The guy again turned to Vladika for advice, but he recommended not to choose a robbery function because it simplifies the ability of the magician. However, Lin Luo knew that robbery was his innate ability, and therefore all processes are still based on the Dark Emperor. The young man again asked Vladika to what profession he would be transferred after the second level if he chooses the function of the killer. The assistant stood his ground, noting that it is better to take the profession of a magician if the guy prefers the killer outlawed. She will be well combined with robbery. The young man thought that the level of the Dark Emperor is at the limit, so choosing a killer who has dexterity, this main quality, is the right solution. A moment later, Lin Lin called the system menu and made his choice in advance, apologizing to his double, which was the Emperor. Emphasized by a glow, the young man heard that now his profession had changed, and he received a large number of advantages. The guy looked at the characteristics of his body that the computer showed and noted for himself that they were changing. And quickly enough, at the next stage, the system recommended to our hero how it is better for him to get around his enemy, and what he could get for the task that will be passed. After a moment in the hands of a young man, there was concomitant equipment. It was a small blade of a beginner who also had his own attack. Feeling his new power, Linu spoke under his breath as he thought, "The killer and the Dark Emperor. This is the best couple at the moment." Further, the young man heard the system asked him to choose the number of participants for the test and decided to go through it himself. Realizing that additional points would be given to him for this, our hero was aware that he would go to the Goblin Dungeon, that he was not scared. Moreover, he decided to choose the most difficult level. And again, the system showed a notification that either the young man will be successfully tested or he will die. And therefore Linu should make his final choice. Deciding that he was ready, the door opened and the young man saw a large number of goblins in front of him, who held sticks in their hands. Our hero was confident in himself. He did not doubt his own abilities, and therefore in his gait, he reads that he was a leader who is absolutely all. The young man drew attention to the most formidable goblin. The system immediately informed the guy that this creature could, as well as what his level of power is. Without going to hesitate, our hero immediately raised his own hand and began to give an order to the Dark Emperor. The young man called on such a function as hundreds of battles, thanks to which the frequency of strikes increased by 20%. Already a moment later, Lin Lin showed his double to destroy all the goblins who stood in front of them, blocking the path to the cave. Our hero did not even understand what happened, as the system immediately reported that she managed to destroy the red-eyed enemy and get 1,500 experience points for him. The young man did not have time to say anything. The Dark Emperor appeared dozens of hands, each of which reached for his monster to deal with him. The assistant dealt with the ill-wisher so fast that it was difficult to believe in it. The system only managed to report that goblins are successfully destroyed one by one, while our hero increased experience and scores were gaining. Only a few minutes passed, and defeated rivals were already lying in front of the young man and his doubles, who allowed the young man to increase their level. The guy looked somewhere into the distance and smiled. He was pleased that thanks to his skills and ideas, he managed to get to the 6th level. Lin Luo understood that the ability to robbing can be used only 7 times, and goblins are garbage, and therefore the forces should be made. Instead, it is better to view the inventory. To defeat, he needed dexterity and speed, the only way it was possible to get out of this cave not only alive, but also with the achievements that were so needed. Therefore, the guy asked the computer to increase his dexterity by 16 points, strength by 4 points, and the strength of dexterity by 10 points. And again, the system notified that if our hero does not want to spend his abilities on pumping the body and wants to save energy, then it is best to add a little dexterity. The guy remembered how many players entered the dungeon in a past life, fought before the mission, and after a while endurance dried up, they became superfluous. At the same time, the remaining money will fall into the chest with treasures after the death of the boss, and therefore they should not be taken from there. The guy could not think of his thought to the end, because he drew attention to how the goblins began to fly in different directions. Lin Lo looked at his assistant and understood that many monsters became only stronger, but this is already the same as before. Not scared. Thinking again, our hero was aware that he also reached a high level, is now in the 7th position. Moving further into the dungeon, the guy told himself that he would definitely cope with all the difficulties that would meet in his way. Lin Lo thought that the queue finally reached before, and carefully looked at the one who was right in front of him. It was a monster that was called the Bosom of the Dungeon. He looked intimidating enough, but not for our hero. The servant, which consisted of goblins, noticed the young man and immediately took up arms against him. They roared and rocked in the hope that the young man would be afraid. But not these monsters attracted the attention of the guy, but the girls who were captives. The beauties looked imploringly at Lin Lo, asking him to do at least something. The young man noted for himself a large goblin, a shaman, and a fiery goblin. It is a pity that their abilities are very different in the Dark Emperor. Our hero shouted to the girls to run, realizing that the monster to slip a little and may fall. However, he was in no hurry to do anything, assessing the situation in order to make the right decision. The guy thought that the goblin is just part of the program. Despite this, no matter how much he looked at them, they continued to annoy him. The young man did not want to pull time, and therefore shouted to the Dark Emperor to destroy all the rivals. The double was not going to hesitate, and therefore began to instantly deal with everyone who could harm the owner, who was Lin Lo. Those goblins that did not remain in the ranks did not intend to give up easily, and therefore resisted. Our hero, who also had power, accelerated in order to take revenge on all creatures for capturing girls. Suddenly, a strong blow was heard in the cave, indicating that Linu had finally connected. Two goblins, as they stood silently, continued to stand, realizing that they should find a reasonable way out of this situation. Although the next moment the Dark Emperor headed in their direction to figure it out, not much time passed, and the guy was already standing in the middle of the cave. Defeated goblins lay around him. Pointing to the boss, the young man said that now his turn has come. If he did not want to be killed, then it was best to run. The double did not receive any order from the master, and therefore he simply stood and waited. The king of Goblin growled, showing all his strength and power, but also was not going to attack the first. Suddenly, the Dark Emperor dealt a powerful blow to his enemy, who did not expect such a turn of events. All the audience drew attention to the one who was called the boss, who was now lying on the floor. Lin Lo looked at this creature, noting that it is miserable and adding that only dead goblins are good goblins. A moment later, the system informed our hero that he managed to cope with the task, and therefore the guy earned 9,700 points and was transferred to the highest level. The young man pleased not only this, but the fact that the passage of the level allowed him to get a chest with treasures that had already been formed. And then the guy received what he was counting on. It was a chest with treasures of gold level. Our hero thought to himself that he received the same. The number of people and the difference in levels determined the doubling and reduction of points. And again, the system showed what Lin could count on the points on. Initially, this is a low-level mission, not even of medium complexity. You can get a high-level black iron. All chests are divided into bronze, black iron, silver, gold. There are also holy, earthly, heavenly, and immortal. Each species is still divided into a number of others. Putting his hand on the lid, our hero thought that it was delightful, and thanks to the Lord of Prayers, you can easily get gold. Having tuned in, the young man asked him to open. The young man was glad of what was inside. A large number of recovery potions made it possible to improve their abilities and strength. There were other items in the chest that the guy did not appreciate much, since the staff, knife, and jacket could not help him in passing the tasks. Inside were the highest level spells that had a low estimate, but high value. Most of all, Lin Lo was delighted that in the chest there were two subjects of the highest level, which he could still use. The guy did not know everything and remembered from a past life, and therefore asked the computer to show him the characteristics of a short blade of the guard. Reading the information, the young man was aware of what kind of little thing it was. This blade had 40 attacks more than the bronze sword of the 10th level, and there are 3 more additional characteristics and the effect of bleeding. Linu did not stop there and asked the system to show him the characteristics of the guard's armor, and again the computer indicated a number of advantages of this accessory. Having dressed in armor, our hero noted that it is easy, but at the same time retains life and reduces damage. The young man saw that these games were saved, and therefore it was necessary to introduce a game character, which was a Dark Emperor. The system notified the young man that the player was the first in the world who alone passed the Hell's level, and the reward will be a happy ticket to the rounds of the Wheels of Fate. People standing on the street began to ask each other who this emperor was, since he managed to do what no one else could do. Utaitsa was the only one who was embarrassed. He remembered that the previous announcement came late in the evening. The Lord of Time understood the anxiety of the man and assured him that travel could not affect the course of events. However, the young man decided that either the Dark Emperor in this world took the power of the Lord to pass the dungeon, or he took the power in the future and returned to the present. The girl, like Utaitse, was not understood if the Force could not improve someone's abilities. As this man dared to enter the dungeon alone, the man decided, as it were. But if the guy develops very quickly in the dungeons, there will be problems. Holding a gold card in his hands, Lin Law remembered that in his last life he spent 3 years, but the Wheel of Fortune fell only 5 times. And then the young man turned to the Lord of Prayers, noting that now his turn is to make history. Opening the book, the double said that he was pleased to serve our hero. Lin Lo stood silently, and then asked the Lord to ask to find out what to do in order to get the maximum benefit. The double congratulated the guy on the gain in the lottery, adding that this is a valuable award that can be obtained after passing the dungeon of the most difficult level. And a little hesitant, he added that in the Wheel of Fortune, you can win objects of inventory at different levels, but many cannot be found even in the dungeon. And then the Lord began to tell what his master could count on. The guy added that the probability of getting an inventory of one or another level may vary significantly. Therefore, it does not matter how much the chances will be, because everything depends only on good luck. And notice that the master may not get the props of the level of S or higher. If the owner, with the help of a desire, wants to get a certain SSS item, the Lord will fall asleep for 6 months, if random, then for 6 days. The young man decided that the dream of a double would affect him and take the strength from other people. And this is a shame, and therefore it is better to use the inventory of the level of S. Hearing that in this case the Lord will spend 110 units of energy, Linu decided that there should be at least one subject of level S or higher for such an amount. Having concentrated, the double said that quite a bit, and the desire of the master would be fulfilled. But after a moment, what our hero did not expect, the whirlwind of energy pulled a lottery ticket out of his hands. But this was not surprised by the young man, but the white fog, which was right in front of him, as well as the huge clock that he clearly saw. The young man stood in his place, not even to move in a state. It all struck him so much, and after a moment, a large green crystal appeared in front of the guy. Further, the system informed Lin that he won the next 10 prizes and could take them. The communication crystal could increase the range of movements of the double. The real crystal was in a state to increase the energy limit, and the extremely gave the double a temporary acceleration. The guy was insulting that only an extreme crystal was the level of SS. Other objects were inferior in strength to this accessory. The system at the same moment recommended that our hero use one crystal, because, having left the dungeon, it will receive 1% of the value of the inventory. Passing these objects to the Dark Emperor, Lin noted that they rightfully belonged to him. And it was not just a gesture of politeness. Such a gift allowed the double to increase its range by 6 meters. Looking at the scoreboard, the young man decided that he still had a heart of energy and a crystal of cruelty. The young man turned to the Lord and asked who this inventory is intended for. With admiration, looking at the crystals, the double recommended that he give them. If you do this, you don't have to worry about the problems with energy to fulfill desires. Having received jewelry, the Lord noted that his master made a wise decision. While the man was rejoiced, our hero thought about how sorry that the real crystal is not enough to increase the value of the inventory. It grew by only 4%. With sadness, Linu realized if there was no space crystal, he could not take the equipment with him that he was used to using. To find it, you can't stop. You need to move forward. Leaving the portal, the guy heard people around actively discuss the fact that the dungeon was too complicated. Many were convinced that it was possible to understand before, that it was better not to go there. But Lin Law was not interested in the opinion of others. He knew that he overtook many in strength and abilities. There was an opportunity to quickly develop and leave others behind. Our hero decided that it was time to go into the likeness of the Babylonian Tower in order to get the first achievement. The number of levels there is endless. As in the first case, many people who were discussing something were crowded near the energy tower. Some people boasted that they had reached the 3rd level. Other young people asked if there are girls with whom you could unite. Linlo was interested in the fact that for every 10 floors of the tower to go, you can get a ticket of Fortune's Wheel. So this time, you have to try well. Suddenly, a red-haired beauty appeared in front of the young man, who invited him to unite the team. After passing by her, the young man proudly stated that he was not interested in such nonsense, since they poorly affect the speed of level passing. The guy went inside, realizing that this place is quite loyal to beginners, which is undoubtedly pleasing. Noticing in front of himself some creatures, our hero ordered the Dark Emperor not to stand idle and start working, realizing that there are still many levels ahead. The double began to shove the ill-wishers while the system notified Lin that it took only 20 seconds to pass the first floor, and he received a reward for this. Climbing the stairs, the young man was proud of himself, realizing that he was moving the right way, doing what was needed. On the 2nd floor of the guy, there was already a surprise. These were wild animals who were not going to a young man so easy to pass further. But Linu did not scare this. Placing his hands in his pockets, he stated that the animals should miss him, because he was in a hurry and was not going to linger. Standing on the street, the crowd saw how the computer announces that the Dark Emperor in just a few minutes passed a single floor of the Babylonian Tower. Breaking all the records, our hero went to the 10th floor and realized that now he was a special mission in front of him. He would be able to go out either with a victory or having died in the battle. The young man remembered in his past life, this floor was alone by Siju alone. But now everything was different, because Linu was configured to get the achievements of the 10th and 20th levels. The elevator doors opened, and on the floor the guy saw a huge beast with shiny green eyes, as well as with a large sword in his hands. The young man understood what this monster was capable of, plus the computer informed about this, but it did not scare him at all. A moment later, the enemy rushed into battle. He was not going to hesitate and knew that with all his might to protect his floor, the guy only managed to note that a crazy blow combined with a machete, this is not the best combination for him. The Dark Emperor, realizing that all hope for him, immediately came out from behind our hero and became in a defensive stand. Not much time has passed, and the battle has already begun. And the battle in which everyone could defeat, since the forces were approximately at the same level. Lin Law saw the power of the animal. It was not that it was not going to retreat. It showed that it would do everything to destroy the players. With horror, following what was happening, the young man noted to himself that the enemy easily flew away from the Dark Emperor, while the double was not easy. The enemy's eyes were filled with blood. He threateningly held the cold weapons in his hands to again strike the Emperor. The struggle ensued. Stones suddenly sprinkled. Fire and smoke appeared. It was difficult to understand what was happening and who managed to be stronger. The Emperor was not going to give up, but at the same time, the Predator looked menacingly at the ill-wisher, understanding his mission. The next moment, some kind of roar was heard. Linu saw a monster that fell at his feet and realized that the double still managed to win. And again, the system notified that the player was the first in history to go alone the 10th floor, and did it in a short period of time. People standing on the street again began to shout loudly about the fact that this is impossible. This person is most likely some kind of Superman, since he does such things. At this very time, an inscription appeared on a magic stone that warned that when a second rank player appeared, disasters would begin in the world. One of the scientists stated that the world would absorb chaos and should prepare for the worst, but at the same time asked an assistant to find a Dark Emperor. Our hero, who did not suspect anything about the stone, understood that the Wheel of Fortune was preparing for him some kind of gift. Therefore, he said aloud, he hopes that, thanks to the abilities of the Lord of Prayers, he will be able to win something valuable. A moment later, the computer noted that the player managed to get 10 interesting prizes. The young man looked at everything in admiration, noting that he got a space crystal. But with his help, you can return to the real world. A real crystal is used directly. Therefore, a crystal returned to reality can be more valuable by 7%. The guy said that he would take 2 magic crystals to improve his own strength and protection, and give 2 crystals of life to the Dark Emperor. Lin Luo decided that it would be more correct to collect 10 lottery tickets and then make a desire through the Dark Emperor, and also to accumulate fragments of fate in order to exchange them for something necessary. Before moving to the next level, it is necessary to sell all the equipment, because the sooner it is done, the more expensive it will cost. The currency in the game and in real life is slightly different. The current exchange rate of 1 game copper coin is from 5 to 6 yuan. The young man decided to start with the fact that there are 6 yuan for 1 copper coin at this stage, and therefore decided to choose something that would come in handy. Our hero put up 2 rare level weapons for auction, as well as a top-level spell, worth 2,300, 2,100 and 4,000 coins. With surprise, looking at the screen, our hero understood that the entire inventory was bought, and in a matter of seconds, in terms of real money, it was 5 million. Lin Law scolded himself for the fact that, firstly, he underestimated the rich, and secondly, that he did not sell all objects separately. Now it did not matter. The task was to rise to the 20th level, go through the quest, and then get out of the game and get the ability of S. Suddenly, the young man recalled the Smiling Coffin, the Great Tomb, and the Bucky Society. These are the notorious clans that appeared after the chaos of the chaos in his former life. Bai Hong Li, one of the 8 leaders of the Clan 8, on a rainy night he carried not an umbrella, but a knife with him. Among the 10 guards of the Great Tomb, the Bloody Witch Jivan In and the Icy Rage Liu Jiang In made a great contribution to the breakdown of the clan. The leaders of the Smiling Tomb of Zhou Yu, Hu Jinming and Go Tao, All of them are masters who were able to arouse the abilities of S level. Our hero decided that after he could destroy these people, he would go to a terrible place, the City of Sins, where the inhabitants torture each other, but they cannot atone for sins. The guy was determined. He knew for sure that he would destroy everyone who killed him, as well as his brother, and would not forget about those who stood behind them. Sitting in front of the monitor, Sin noted that Chinese methods of combating fraud are becoming better, and therefore sending people to work in East Asia is no longer so profitable. But now that the young man has registered his company, he can really achieve greater glory. Although first you need to gain people in China, take them up for a while, and then force them to join the commands. Having picked up the phone in his hands, he firmly noted that another ram fell on the bait. If enough to get, the network would be closed, and he will receive praise from the boss. The 11th floor of the tower looked as frightening as possible, since the players were met by skeletons with swords, standing on both sides of the entrance. Our hero understood that on the first 10 floors it was possible to get only fragments of fate, and after passing this, there was an opportunity to get some equipment. The young man noted that he was very bored of this in a past life, when he spent a lot of time with his brother in these places to paint the company of skeletons. Suddenly, Lin Lo ordered his double to attack everyone he would meet in his path, and he did not wait, but began to do what he was ordered, realizing that he should move on. A moment later, General Skeleton appeared behind the guy, who was at the 17th level. He swung in order to destroy the young man. Lin Lu asked whether it was true that he was looking down on him, because the young man is only at 13 level. But the skeleton did not have time to answer, because our hero, without waiting for the help of the double, turned and hit his opponent with all his strength. The ill-wisher scattered to pieces, and the system notified the guy that he had passed the 11th floor successful, and did it in less than 2 minutes. The young man thought that he had experience at 3 years old. He accumulated such knowledge that now even creatures who are in the underworld would not frighten him. Only 8 minutes passed, and Linu was already on the 20th floor, where he was not joyful, but the Lord Skeleton was waiting, ready to destroy everyone and everyone in his path. The young man understood that this opponent was able to call his army to help, and it was the difficulty that could prevent the level from quickly passing. And this happened. The Lord screamed so that his faithful servants woke up, leave hell, and came to fight for the common cause. In the next instant, the assistants who were ready for anything began to show out of all the cracks and corners. Lin Luo understood that in front of him over 200 skeletons, the complexity of this level is much exceeding the previous 19 floors. The leader screamed so that his associates would not expect and began to struggle, which they were going to do. The battle did not have time to start yet, and the skeletons already with a bang fell to the floor and crashed like ordinary fragile glass. The Dark Emperor did not hesitate. He had a great supply of experience that he used in full. Suddenly, our hero was in the center of the frozen lake, around which not only stood, but also pushed skeletons. The young man was aware that his abilities were not enough to defeat the whole army. It is likely that he would be serious injuries. That is why our hero decided to call for himself to help the Lord of Prayers, who immediately appeared behind the guy. Linu shouted that the desire to make the Dark Emperor to storm in the next fight and struck with a vengeance. Our hero shouted to his warrior to a double, so that he beat the Lord Skeletons until he was overwhelmed by him. It was not the simplest desire, and therefore the Lord needed several minutes to do their job. Linu Lo asked in surprise if he really could leave such a request. Vladika did not answer. Instead, our hero looked at the Dark Emperor, around whom the energy flow began to spin, testifying to his strength. The Lord Skeleton saw what was happening, but it was absolutely not scared. He was ready to accept the battle and even fight back. The young man ordered the Dark Emperor to go forward, noting that he would help him in this difficult battle. A moment later, the double was already flying towards the ill-wisher, doing everything possible to destroy it. He carefully watched an uninvited guest, but waited when there would be some real actions. Realizing that the Emperor was very close, the warrior began to actively wave his own sword. The Lord triumphantly stated that his enemy scattered into pieces. This is what happens to those who cross the road. The young man with sadness in his voice turned to his double, but he was silent. The Lord scored angrily and looked at our hero, realizing that he would attack him. Suddenly, the Dark Emperor began to gradually rise from the place where he was lying. The young man smiled and spoke out loud that he had no doubt that everything would be exactly like that. After a moment, the double began to strike his rival, for which the system immediately began to count the desired points. The computer said that the blow was 100% powerful. The enemy received very severe damage due to this. Lin Log shouted that this is the most correct way to make desires, and added that evil spirits were torn to pieces with just one movement. The double waving his hands, and the computer reported that he managed to defeat the Lord Skeletons and go through the 20th floor of the tower for which the reward was supposed to be obtained. Our hero knew that the Dark Emperor could deal with everyone, but said that he would not spend time on this, because they have more important things. The gathered people were surprised to note that it was something incredible to pass 20 floors. Others thought that probably the hero was beaten to half to death. From the 21st to 29th floor, the player passes a particularly complex labyrinth. But it was not so difficult to do, because the computer announced the successes of Lin Lo. The young man used the shortest route, which remembered to speed up the passage of the dungeon, and all in order to meet with the boss on the 3rd floor. Standing in front of the gate that could open for the path to passing 31 floors, the guy heard a warning that he could not go through such a complex mission. The guy said that he did not need any advice. He himself knows what to do next. Suddenly, the door opened and the young man saw the king of the Minotaur in front of him, he thought. Was it the same boss that so much was talking about? Our hero happily noted for himself. Finally, he will be able to use the active robbery skill. Suddenly, the guy heard a huge hammer that inspired horror with a roar to the ground. The king said with a laugh at the young man about how stupid he was. Probably he does not even imagine what was waiting for him ahead. With calm in his voice, with his hands on his chest, Lin Lu asked if he really understands that the labyrinth is a real trap for everyone who is here. He carefully looked at the young man, but continued to remain silent. Our hero shouted loudly to the Dark Emperor, which probably came the time for another powerful battle. The king was ready to take a blow. He grabbed his hammer, lifted it, and began to wave it. The double carefully looked at everything that was happening, but was in no hurry to take any action. Seeing that the hammer fell on the floor with a roar, the guy thought that in his last life he was convinced by his own experience that he should not quickly overcome the floors from 21 to 29. Since the monsters with whom the players fought will be revived and come to the call of the king to support their boss, the young man did not have time to think about something. He drew attention to how the king's huge fist sent the Dark Emperor. There was no bounds to the goblin's evil. He continued to pound on the ground again and again, which quickly split into pieces. Lin Luo knew for sure that not the first generation of players fell into this stupid trap. But our hero had his own plan. Calling the Lord of Prayers, the guy ordered him to continue to help the Dark Emperor to strike with a vengeance. Looking at the double, Vladika noted that he did as he was asked, that he had his success. In the next instant, the young man saw how the glasses were accrued with lightning speed, realizing that there is the effect of increasing force, and very good. However, suddenly the king began to call his warriors from the underworld. He asked them to come and protect him from a man who decided to destroy everything. The young man carefully followed the goblin, realizing that he was starting an attack, and it would not be simple. The young man concentrated, trying to collect all his energy and strength, realizing that he had to accept this battle. Lin Thli loudly shouted to the Dark Emperor that it was time, and showing them everything they were capable of. And at the same moment, he noticed how dozens of fists rushed towards the king. The goblin grinned. He began to say that he came across the most vile little man, whom he could only meet. It was necessary to act, and therefore the double activated the ability of the royal blow, which could help finish what they started a little earlier. The young man looked at his hand and smiled. He spoke aloud that this feeling is so amazing, hearing the system notifying that he had reached the 16th level. While the computer continued to notify the bonuses further, Lin heard the goblins began to make noise behind him, who were about to fulfill the decree of his king. The Dark Emperor calmly noted that it was they. The young man understood that these monsters from the underworld itself, they are in a hurry right to them. It seems that they arrived just in time. Raising his hand, Linu turned to the soldiers and said that those on his team would begin to retreat immediately. To himself, the guy thought that he wanted to check something. He is obliged to know if he had chosen the good ability for himself. Suddenly, a roar rang out into the room. It was a noise from the falls of the goblins, who were going to destroy our hero and his double a minute ago. The entities carefully looked at the guy as enchanted. It seemed that they did not see anything and nobody around. The young man raised his hand slightly and began to smile, but at the same time he was silent, waiting for something. After a moment, the orcs and other predators who stood in front of our hero suddenly sat on their knees as if they were about to worship him. Linu carefully watched what was happening, but was in no hurry to do something. At this very time, in a dungeon for beginners, in a secret kingdom of mushrooms, the stranger turned to one of them and said that they kneel down. The king of mushrooms, who had the 8th level, was before this young man, looking at the speaker with discontent. and he, in turn, behaved as a full-fledged lord, who was allowed absolutely everything. Yu Taiji clapped his hands, thinking that he found the enemy worthy of his skill of the Emperor's eyes, adding that he heard a lot about Mr. Those Ruo. The man in a suit was convinced that he would definitely overcome the Dark Emperor thanks to this person. Turning around, Those Ruo asked who the stranger was, and for what reason he was not afraid of his ability of the Emperor's eye. Stepping closer, the young man named his name, adding that he lives outside of time. Besides this, he will also be able to make a guy much more if he wishes. A man in a yellow robe looked at Yu Taiji with cautiously and asked what it means to live outside of time, and also for what reason he came to him. After a moment, a business young man took his companion by the hand, and then he began to say that firstly, he needed help, and secondly, Those Ruo is able to put any monster on his knees. At this very time in the labyrinth, goblins and other representatives of the underground world, turning to Lin Law, said goodbye to him, calling him their king. This was flattered to the young man. He smiled. But at this very moment, he called the Dark Emperor, ordering him to do his job. I didn't have to repeat twice. The double, jumping out of the guy's back, immediately began to beat all who came across in his way with fists. Only one moment passed, and all the gathered flew in different directions with lightning speed. At some point, it seemed that everyone was mixed so much that it was impossible to understand what was happening at all. The young man began to cough and say aloud that a lot of dust had accumulated into the room, while hearing about how the system notifies the victory of the Dark Emperor. Leaving the dungeon, Lin heard the happy exclamations of people who said that it was so quickly to reach the 30th floor. This is simply amazing, not understanding who the universal hero is. The young man at that time was thinking that he could now reach a completely new level, which undoubtedly seduced him. Once near the restaurant, Linu decided that it was time to eat a little. Enjoying ramen, the guy thought that the second-level dungeon would be more difficult than what he went through, and experience from a past life cannot be used. But our hero did not think of the thought to the end, because at the other end of the hall, an unknown man gave the brunette a slap in the face, noting that the priest would become an obstacle. Lin Lo, continuing to chew noodles, noted to himself that his former colleagues were facing him. The young man remembered how these guys openly discussed him with his brother in the office, calling them thugs, thieves, and people of the lowest grade. A tearful girl, sitting on the floor, apologized, noting that she would never do as she did again. The red-haired young man hit the girl in the face with his boot, shouting at her and saying that the forgiveness was not to help, because it is already spoiled. Bringing a spoon to his mouth, Lin again noted to himself that some person had disappeared, and most likely, he was no longer alive. Two men asked to bring them more noodles and branded dishes, and also said that they were treated as soon as possible. Another unknown came up to the brunette, who, drinking her, shouted so that she got up and did not pretend that she could not do this. The young man mocked the girl, saying that she was in vain considering herself as a leader, since she is no longer, and there is no at all anywhere. The brunette, stretched out on the floor, thought that the captain would always live in their hearts. Grabbing the girl by the gate, the man dragged her somewhere, noting that now she would work for them. And Lin Lo continued to think that some of the audience in the restaurant were once in a good relationship. But the world changed, which affected them. The men understood that the captain died, but they did not have enough people in the detachment, and therefore they needed another person. But where to get him, it was not clear. At this very time, the girl who was sitting on the floor caused an energy ball. But this was not surprised by the former employee of our hero, but something completely different. Getting up from his place, with a plate in his hands, he headed towards Lin Lo, welcoming it as if they were long, standing friends. The brunette also noticed the young man and turned to him in a low voice. The red-haired guy, hugging our hero by the shoulder, asked where he disappeared, adding that he missed him very much and did not know how the guy's life had developed after awakening. Putting a plate with food in front of the young man, the former employee said that he should eat very well and not sigh, as if something had happened. The young man asked about the ability of Lin Law, simultaneously noting that he could help him earn a lot of money, saying that the young man is worthy of the team Wen Yui-chan. In the past life of our hero, they detained for 10 days for the beating of the captain. But when he left, Zhang Wei contacted him. The guy at that time was a naive boy, and therefore told his colleague that his talent was called robbery, and did not forget to mention all the nuances. Then the employees took advantage of this. They noted that Linu Lin and his brother were grown by the parents of thieves, and therefore talent was also connected with robbery. Having got up from his place, the young man proudly stated that he was not looking for a team. hearing after the question regarding whether that levels go through. The red-haired former colleague with a mockery asked who Lin Lin imagined himself, and whether he dreamed of becoming the same great boss as the mysterious Dark Emperor. The guy did not answer and silently headed for the door while the brunette rushed after him. Grabbing his leg, the girl prayed to the young man so that he listened to her and saved from everything that was happening to her. The brunette of the last forces touched the hands of Lin Luo in the hope that he would still take pity and pay attention to her. With tears in her eyes and with a blush on her face, the beauty asked the young man not to throw her with these men and take her with her. Our hero sharply raised his hand and struck in a harsh tone that his former colleague had been revealed because he was not looking for his partner. The red-haired man who witnessed this picture fled to the girl and shouted the most offensive words that he was capable of. Grabbing her hair, he shouted that the brunette was trying to seduce everyone he meets in her path. As for Lin Law, he is the most ordinary weakly. And again, the men began to discuss their former colleague, saying that he is a weakness and a thief, and this does not deserve anything good. The red-haired young man said that if he knew that the Wen family will regret and forgive two thieves, he would immediately visit their family in order to steal something. Our hero, who did not have time to leave, said with hatred in his eyes and anger in his voice that he would not advise men to pronounce the words that he had just heard. The red-haired guy looked at Lin Lo and asked what words he was talking about, and, without waiting for an answer, he began to insult the young man, saying that he dreamed of jumping above his own head. The young man passed by, but at the same time he clenched his fist, although he was not going to do anything bad. But the red-haired man did not calm down. He turned to his colleagues, saying that the guy misunderstood something and therefore should show who is stronger in this world. And they picked up this idea, spreading their fists, noted that they visited the dungeon, successfully passed many levels. Therefore, they would easily deal with some boy. Going to our hero, one of the guys shouted that no one would save him, and therefore, if Lin Lin wants to live, he knew better and asked well. After a moment, the enemy's fist was at the young man's face. It seemed that he was about to hit him. But suddenly something happened that no one expected. Lin Lo jumped up, inflicted crushing blows to his former colleagues. With contempt, looking at the ill-wishers, the guy thought to himself that he lived two lives, and therefore knows better than others what the world of kulaks is. The red-haired man, standing all this time aside, was indignant aloud, not understanding how the boy could defeat two beautiful fighters. The former colleague decided that it was best to eliminate the problem on his own, and therefore straightened his jacket and took out a knife to scare Lin Lo. Attacking our hero, the enemy shouted with rage about what would take revenge now. The ill-wisher waved so as to deliver a crushing blow. The guy saw what was happening and therefore did not hesitate. Already a second later, clenching his hand into a fist, Lin Lin with rage hit his former colleague in the chin area. The young man understood that the enemy could answer, and therefore once again hit him in the area below the waist. Men who became involuntary witnesses of this showdown screamed. They tried to understand what was happening with their captain, who flew to the other end of the hall. And Lin Luan, with a calm look, looked at the offenders but was in no hurry to do anything else. And at this very time, colleagues discussed what the level of force we managed to awaken our hero, realizing that they were not his rivals. At the same time, having fallen to their knees, the young people began to be interested in whether the guy needed the participants in the team and added that they were ready to do all the dirty work for him. Linu Lo, with indifference in his voice, repeated once again that he did not need a team, and therefore he does not need the participants, continuing to hear how men asked them to forgive them. Former colleagues bowed as low as never before and tirelessly said that they had been very mistaken before, but now they understood a mistake. At this very time, what unknown person from the window watched what was happening, thinking that a strong guy was working in a small restaurant, which was difficult to believe in. Bai Hong Li, who was one of the 8 founders of the Great 8 clan, ordered his assistant to look after our hero. Linu was tired of looking at young people, and therefore he ordered them as soon as Jiang Wei wakes up so that he would immediately kneel. Looking after the departing guy, the former colleagues noted what they would do as they were ordered. The brunette thought to herself that Lin Lin is an amazing person. This is exactly the man she always dreamed of. The girl saw how the young man was moving away, but she continued to shout to him that she used to be a little rude, but only because she was forced by the boss to behave like that. And, clutching the guy's leg, she added that she knew that he was angry with her, and then fell silent abruptly. Our hero stopped and, without turning around, ordered the brunette to simply be silent. But the beauty did not calm down, taking the young man's hand to her. She asked him to take her with her, promising that she would necessarily redeem her guilt. Furious, Linu pulled his hand with force and shouted so that the brunette not only calmed down, but also behaved decently. To herself, the girl thought that this garbage again left. Besides this, she did not consider herself a bad player and wanted to be with a young man because she considered him a good person. The men who were behind the beauties again began to blame her for the fact that she wanted to seduce someone, reminding about their captain and about Mrs. Wen Yu Chen. Finally, unable to stand it, the brunette turned around and began to menacingly ask young people about what she was worse than a girl, whom everyone is talking about. Men who, not so long ago, seemed to be friends and colleagues, talked on a par, now insulted the beauty, noting that she was a discharge. Having fallen to his knees, the brunette's colleagues began to ask her to say what she was talking about just a few minutes ago. Rising, young people stated that Lin Law left, which means that there is no one to protect the defenseless girl. The guys tried to do something, but noted to himself that our hero hit them so much that they lost all their strength. Having carefully looked at her offenders, the girl decided that she had finally came to avenge these young people. The brunette waved with all the strength that she was only capable of and screamed that this was the reckoning for all the kindness that colleagues gave her. The girl heard one of the ill-wishers screamed about where she had the strength to resist, and also threatened to deal with her in parallel. An unfamiliar fair-haired man continued to watch everything that was happening in the restaurant. He said aloud that the girl was very bold and fights well. The partner noticed that the girl was very beautiful, while the blonde hinted that this beauty can be taken to their team, especially since they lack women. Drinking tea, the captain told his colleague that he was inquiring in between the brunette, who was the young man who left a few minutes earlier. Entering her offenders, the girl with a smile noted that the time would come when she would come in the same way on Lin Lo. At this time, a man appeared in the room who asked the brunette about whether she had ever heard about the Company of Eight. Without turning around, the beauty aloud said that this is one of the most famous teams of players. Hearing the remark that the young man is looking for a team of people, the girl was happy to say that she would join them if they wanted. And again, the brunette thought that if Lin Luo understood that she was now in a large guild, he would not behave like that. That's the difference between a commoner and a rich man. And she said out loud that, since they are now one team, she could not be called Qin Xiaomei, but just Xiaomei. Answering a man's question, the beauty said that that rude guy who left a few minutes earlier, her former colleague who loves to play with other people's feelings. Suddenly, the young man asked Xiaomei if she knew what kind of weaknesses Linu had, hinting that their team could take revenge on her. With anger in her voice, the girl noted that the young man has weakness. This is a woman who is called Wen Yu Chen. Our hero was moving along a deserted street. He was calm. It seemed that he was not affected by a recent conflict. At this time, some stranger reported on the phone to his boss that Lin passed by and headed for the eastern square of the city. And a minute later, he added that the captain asked to lower some girl down, and therefore all the brothers would be satisfied. Lin Luo was a smart guy. For a moment, he stopped, realizing that he was being monitored. But the reason for this was unknown. The unknown guy was given the relative instructions on the phone that when the next step of our hero will be determined, you need to make his attention to Ven Ya Qi. The young man, as he was ordered, stood and looked after the young men. Suddenly, Linu Lin, who confidently walked forward, turned and walked towards his pursuer. The stranger watched our hero with an impassive look, and he thought to himself, he was wondering who it was so brave in order to follow him on the heels. The young man tried to remember where he saw this man, although he understood that it was unlikely that this happened. Our hero passed by his pursuer, pretending that nothing unusual was happening. But after a moment, the enemy felt a blow, although he still continued to stand on his feet. This did not last long. Only 1 moment passed, and the unknown has already flown away with maximum strength to the side. It seemed to the young man something unreal, since the blow was actually powerful, as only a person with a high level of strength could possess. Lin Luo, behind whom the double stood, calmly in his voice said that the unknown person should say who he was, and also who sent him. Hearing an absurd explanation that the young man had confused something, he said that he had noticed at the restaurant as this guy turned around the corner and followed him. Our hero, taking him by the ear, decided that most likely he belongs to the Clan 8. According to the events of the past life, Lin this clan should not have appeared before him early. The young man did not understand what went wrong, and therefore once again asked the pursuer why he was following him who sent him. Although the young man continued to stand his ground, the dead soldiers of the Clan 8 are known for their cruelty, but it seems that in front of him is a simple dead man, and therefore to continue the conversation, this is a waste of time. Lin Lo was not going to waste time in vain. and therefore decided to attract the Lord of Prayers, who immediately appeared. The double took his staff, and the young man had already made a desire. He wanted the unknown to voluntarily tell everything he was hiding. Through a moment, the guy admitted that his name is Sunlan. He is a member of the 8 clan, is under the leadership of General Pek Hong-el. They have one beauty player. The narrator also told that it was this girl who told them about Lin Law, and therefore the captain ordered the guy to follow the guy, and then ordered to investigate the case of the man Ven Yuqi. While our hero was listening to the fact that blackmail was being prepared, he thought that Xiao Mei decided to deceive him, as well as cause big problems. In the last life in the 3rd year after the beginning of the plague, when Hong Li killed Wen, and on this the guy finished his thoughts, and then he continued to think about the fact that then he wanted to avenge the death of the girl, constantly risked his life in order to improve his abilities. Unfortunately, Linu then died at the hands of the monster because the skills were not enough. Without turning around, our hero told the double that they should definitely get rid of the body so that no one understands anything. The Dark Emperor did not have to ask twice, because after a minute, taking the ill-wisher by the legs, he decided to throw him into some kind of cliff. The guy wanted to understand how much time would need to fulfill his desire, so that the clan did not attack Ven Yi, and the double replied that he was less than a day. Our hero said aloud that this was enough, and to himself thought that he should change the profession before Bai Hong Li destroyed with confidence, and Lin Luan made this desire, hearing the Lord screaming that it would be fulfilled in the specified time. Not much time has passed, and the guy had already gone to pass the second part of the assignment in the secret world. Noting that in this place suspiciously quietly, moving deep into it, Lin Law thought that he did not know what to expect, but hoped that everything would go smoothly. For a few seconds, the young man stopped, thinking about something. Desmond Miles turned to our hero as an adventurer and said that he was feeling the power inside him, and then asked if he was ready to explore high-level secrets. The young man bowed. He was aware that he needed instructions in order to understand what task should be fulfilled. A retired thief said that Lin should find the horn of the snowman and the beak of the royal penguin on the snowfield, although he warned that they were waiting for danger ahead. Making his way through the storm, Lin Lu was aware that the level of the secret world is higher than the level of the secret world of the second part of the dungeon. Despite the cold and poor visibility, the guy was not going to give up. Moreover, he knew that the task should be passed as soon as possible. Suddenly, behind our hero, a black snowman of the 20th generation appeared. This monster was many times more than a guy who did not even suspect what danger was behind him. Finally, our hero turned around. He did not understand, unless a monster of such a rank should be in the second part of the dungeon, and whether he had the strength to attack. Linlo called the Dark Emperor just at the moment when the snowman squeezed his huge hand into his fist and was about to hit the young man. While the double reflected the blow and did it quite successfully, the guy crouched to find the horn of the snowman, which was found after a couple of seconds. It was impossible to lose a minute, and therefore the guy screamed again so that the Dark Emperor attacked and did not think to stop. He did what he was told, easily coped with the task, and in parallel with this, the system reported that he managed to get one horn of the snowman. Lin Luo, with joy in his voice, noted that they managed to find what was needed. Our hero took up the horn, but at the same time, some strange sounds that came from somewhere from the outside attracted his attention. Suddenly, the help began to approach from all sides. These were huge snowmen who were going to take revenge on the ill-wishers who invaded their world. Looking around, the young man realized that snow and ice somehow turned into snowmen, which, most likely, would have to fight. Having called for his blade, Linu said aloud that right now a real battle will begin, in which he and a double will participate. Having become a Dark Emperor with his back, the guy asked if he was ready to battle when he heard an affirmative answer. One of the snowmen noted that our hero and his partner are very slow. Therefore, attacking together, they will be able to win, and with ease. Starting the competition, the young man screamed, "It will be good if the snowman's horn also falls from other snowmen." With one powerful movement, Lin hit the opponent. Immediately, the computer congratulated the young man on receiving the horn of the snowman. But this was not the end. Having dealt with one, our hero drew attention to the others who had already awaited him. One of the stood decided not to waste time in vain, and therefore swung to deliver a young man crushing a blow. Lin loses crawl in such a way that during the snowman leaning over, cut his hands, leaving the monster in confusion, the evil and brutalized. Our hero understood that he would take revenge. Therefore, running away from the enemy, he shouted to the Dark Emperor to help him and take a blow to himself. Having pushed away from his double, The young man managed to soak over the ground in such a way as to fall directly onto one ill-wisher, inflicting the injury. And again, the system informed that the young man managed to get one horn. However, Linu Law was not enough. He was not going to stop there. And therefore, having gathered all his strength and power, he began to throw opponents in different directions. The young man did everything possible to defeat ill-wishers. And after a moment, turning, our hero shouted to his assistant so that he finished all the snowmen while they are unconscious, otherwise they would not leave this place. The double was immediately near his master and stated that he would do everything as it should. The Dark Emperor one by one destroyed snowy people who posed a special danger. At the same time, the system tirelessly continued to praise the player for the excellent passage of the level. The young man heard that another rock snowman was received, realizing that they were closer to victory. And then something unusual began, because the computer over and over again continued to say that the Dark Emperor managed to get one horn. Looking at his own results, the guy noted to himself that he and the double managed to gain more than 30 pieces. But this did not please the young man. Turning around, he realized that the snowmen are somehow strange. They were destroyed. Despite this, there are no less creatures. At this very time, the king, who was sitting on the throne, said that he did not understand how the little people dared to come to their possessions, and therefore he would show how to kill. The ruler was in no hurry, slowly drinking wine. He watched what was happening on the street. But after a moment, the king raised his glass and screamed his subjects so that they rebelled because an important task appeared. Our hero, standing in the middle of the meadow, looked somewhere into the distance with a surprised look and did not understand what was happening. Clutching a fist, some bubbles passed between the fingers. The guy did not understand what it was, and therefore asked a question to his double. From the mountain towards the young man, flows of fire began to fly, reminiscent of the eruption of the volcano, although it was something else. The king of the penguins, who launches these flows, laughed and rejoiced that the young man was without surprise and did not seem to know what to do. After a moment, the enemy shouted to awaken the darkest snowman, the worst that he had ever met. Lin Luke stood and could not get out of his place. Surprise and even fear were red on his face. The next fiery stream that fell on the ground contributed to the creation of a small hole. The young man looked again in front of him. He was thinking about his further actions, realizing that it would be necessary to somehow cope with the penguins. In the head of our hero, the thought flashed that one large penguin gathered all the forces of others to confront alone. Lin Luke stood and waited. He was not going to attack the first, waiting for what actions his enemy would have. Suddenly, the guy remembered, in front of him was the representative of predators who could not be killed. Once again, looking at the penguin, the young man shouted to the Dark Emperor to immediately turn around and run after him. Lin Lo and the double fled as quickly as they could, realizing that it makes no sense to enter the battle in such conditions. Understanding that the persecution was ongoing, our hero jumped into his hands to his double, who fled as quickly as he could. The king of the penguins, still sitting on the throne, shouted so that all representatives of the family would rebel and began to protect him. However, our hero was not going to give up. Turning to the Dark Emperor, he asked him to throw him on the highest peak. Making a throw, the double shouted after the young man that he would clearly be where he planned. Once above, the guy began to wave his blade as if he knew what he wanted to achieve. After a second, Lin began to methodically strike the king of the penguins, realizing that there would be no pack without a leader who could do something. Our hero knew to go through the level, he needed to pick up the king's beak, and therefore did everything possible for this. After a moment, our hero was already holding his trophy in his hands, and the system notified the player that he managed to do what he decided to step on this dangerous road. Looking at the rest of the warrior team, which now looked like separate heaps of mud, Linu decided that the mission was fulfilled, and if so, it was time to go back. Standing in front of the thief, our hero held prizes and said that he did everything, hearing from that praise, as well as compliments on the expense of the fact that the guy was really strong. The man said that he offers Lin several specialties. It can be a noble robber running around the wind, and the Apostle of Darkness, but there are others. Our hero aloud noted that this is what he needed, but to himself thought that for the sake of this purpose he came himself. Having taken the cards in his hands, the person reminded the young man, if he incorrectly changes the specialization, he could wait for death, and therefore Linu should think whether he really wants this. Having bowed, our hero happily stated that for the sake of the second profession he wants to take a chance, even if it is fraught with the most serious consequences. Desmond Miles laughed heartily and honestly admitted that his guest is the first to decide without fear and regret on something like that. also with such excitement. The young man was silent, but thought that in a past life many people could get a hidden profession, which means that he would do it. Putting one card in front of him, the man said that now there was no time for disappointment, but there would be no way back either. The young man added that he sends Linu to the void. It is there that he will be able to find what he is looking for and what he wants. Now with a serious look, Desmond added that the young man would not be shy but chose what he liked. Standing with his head lowered, Lin Law seemed to plunge into some kind of trance state because he did not even want to think. Suddenly, the young man raised his hand and began to stretch it out somewhere. Torpacing the air, our hero spoke out loud about whether this is really the emptiness that he had heard of, but which he never imagined. The young man, a little hesitation, added that there is absolutely nothing in this space. But only a few seconds passed, and the young man noticed a huge fire pillar in front of him, which had neither the beginning nor the end. The guy did not understand something. There were a lot of questions but not a single answer. Despite this, Lin Lo reached out to this fire. Pillars of different colors began to appear around, and our hero noted for himself that now he had become something clear to him. Now it is already completely fearless with complete confidence. The guy held out his hand to the red stream of light and put his hand on him. The young man saw a message from the system that this was the profession of a dissident. It was a merging of good and evil, and remembered that this profession was recommended to him by the Lord of Prayers. After a moment, a decisive step, Lin headed for other pillars. He knew that he should get acquainted with two similar ones. So, the blue stream of light was associated with the profession. Learning about the characteristics, the young man decided that he liked this option more than the first. The guy noted to himself that the color of the beam means how cool and interesting the profession will be. Turning around and looking at the gold stream, the young man aloud said that most likely he would be a top option that should also be checked. Having a little hesitant, Linu finally began to apply a hand to this pillar. The system notified our hero that in this case we are talking about such a profession as a storm sword. Its special quality is that it is considered legendary. Looking in surprise at later the light, the young man talked about the fact that in a past life he had never heard of anything like that. The guy did not understand if it was true that if he receives this legendary profession, he could fight back the Clan 8, although he was embarrassed by the catch, which was probably. The eyes of our hero expanded. He did not understand why the Lord of Prayers had never told him about anything like that. Why he concealed this information. Wanting to figure it out, Lin Lo asked his double to appear immediately to figure out this issue. Our hero thought to himself that it was hard to trust the liar, and aloud asked the Lord of Prayers why he was deceiving him. Having carefully looked at his master, he began to ask counter questions about why he would lie. Smiling, the young man said that Lin Luan is best suited, and in general, this is the most proven and good choice. The young man did not understand such an explanation, and therefore he asked for why such a profession is proven. At the same time, he could not understand which decision would be mercenary. Understanding that the decision should be made, our hero asked Vladika to show him the chances of successing the Storm Swordsman, and he showed that it is almost hopeless. Indeed, the chance to master was 1%, and the success of the change of profession is 0.5%. And therefore the guy thought about what to do next. Without waiting for further questions, the double began to talk about the fact that with the profession the shadow of things are a little better, because the chance of mastering is 22%, and the success of the change of as many as 9%. Lin Luo understood that since the system began to show the results. Then he wanted to know what was there with the dissident. It turned out that the chances of mastering are 89%, and the success of a change in the profession is 98%. And therefore the Lord of Prayers happily reported that it should be given reading this path. The double once again pointed out that the guy should give preference to the profession that will not cause any problems, and he believes that our hero would make the right decision. Linu Lo smiled slightly and asked why he needed to make the safest choice, but thought to himself that he needed the most effective. Vladika carefully looked at the guy. He did not understand what he had in mind, and therefore asked him about it. The young man said that he hopes that next time the double would not choose anything. He would simply show options, and then the young man will decide everything for himself. Vladika drew attention to Lin. Lin turned sharply and strode towards the gold stream, which was less safe, and therefore turned to the owner. The man said that if the chance of mastering the profession is 1%, then the guy can still squeeze the maximum out of it. As soon as he replaces it, will immediately receive a potential of 100%. And after a moment he added a more worried voice. If something went wrong, at best, the forces will weaken for about 20 days, and in the worst and fell silent. Hearing how the young man speaks of death, his double warned that he was absolutely right, and therefore should be thoroughly thought before how to take risks. Linulo out loud said that it doesn't matter if he would lose strength or die, because he would be thrown by others. But he thought to himself that he could not save Wen Yu. Our hero carefully looked at his master, who stated that he was very smart, but in his calculations he completely forgot about him. After a moment, the guy smiled, raising his hand. He said that he was ready to make a desire. Standing in front of the yellow pillar of energy, the young man turned to the Lord of Prayers and said that he wished for success in mastering this profession. Suddenly, he screamed. Finally, the double realized that this was all part of the plan of our hero. Raising his hand up, the young man screamed that since this is a true desire, but he would surely fulfill it. Sitting on the ground, surrounded by fiery light, the system stated that the chance of success is 100%. Our hero opened his eyes for a short time. He did not understand whether his method had acted or not, but after a minute he closed his eyes again to plunge into that stream that every moment enveloped him more and more. Desmond looked at our hero and thought that he had chosen the most rare profession, which is the Sword of the Storm. Not believing that the guy decided, the man was interested in what would follow further, because even those who have a rank of SSS level, not to master it. At that moment, behind Lin Lin, a warrior profession arose. He heard someone speak, if the guy really wants to gain the power of a Sword of Storm. And after a couple of minutes he added, if so, then the young man should understand the true essence of the storm and death. And again, the young man opened his eyes with an impassive look. He looked somewhere forward. There were no emotions on his face, and the voice continued to note that, in addition to the foregoing, it should also be understood what it means to be a true wind, as well as a sword. But most importantly, this is fidelity to the heart, which is a key link to everything. However, all this will fall with Lin Law if he does not fulfill a number of points. Having discarded the fear of death, relying on its heart, the wind will store the owner of a rare profession, and all because it will become a sword, a sharp stream, rallying hurricanes, forever. The young man saw in front of him the image of the same warrior who easily understands the ill, wishers who attacked him from all sides. It seemed that it was simply impossible to meet such a second fearless person. But suddenly, his voice continued to say that, having met face to face, Lin Lin could overcome her. This can do the only an invincible storm sword. Our hero, as before, was sitting motionless, but the voices that he heard have already left. The Lord of Prayers loudly stated that he had no strength left, and therefore he again plunges into an unflattering dream. Without waiting for an answer and disappearing, the young man said, the guy should remember one important thing. He should rely only on his own strength. A moment later, the guy opened his eyes. He had blood from his nose, but Lin Lo did not scare that, but that he seemed to soar in the space of infinity. Already a moment, a young man fell on an object that's somewhat reminiscent of a trampoline, and relaxed for a short while. The retired thief looked at our hero with surprise, who came out of nowhere in his office. Desmond also drew attention to the fact that in less than a second, Linu Lin fell on the carpet right at his feet, as if someone had a lot in the back. The guy opened, but was in no hurry to do something or somehow react to the current situation. Lying on the floor, our hero closed his eyes. He was not going to open his eyes. It seemed that the guy was just thinking about something. Having spoke, the man said that he knew that this would happen, adding that the young man was also overtaken by the reckoning without specifying what was at stake. Desmond was about to say something else, but he was interrupted by the system, notifying that the only winner of the second specialization in the world was born. However, then he continued his thought, noting that if the young man had not to complicate everything, he would be the only one in the world. But only a pity that he had already been ahead. Lin Law was bad. Operine was visible on his face. Our hero tried to say something, but he was given all this with incredible labor. Suddenly, something changed. Gradually rising from the floor, a young man with a smile on his face said that he was the only one in the world. The ill-wisher looked with horror at his guest to say, how to happen? How could this happen so that everything works out? From surprise, a retired thief missed his cigarette, which fell on the carpet, but it did not matter to him. At that moment, Lin Lin took out the potion and began to drink it, hearing how the man noted that, most likely, this is a drink for complete recovery. And while the young man stood silently, he continued to note that, perhaps thanks to this drug, the guy managed not only to survive but also to get a second profession. However, the young man was in no hurry to answer questions or say something. Desmond was brutalized. He was silent, and therefore he began to scream. interested in how the guy succeeded, because this is a unique case. But instead of an answer, Lin Law looked somewhere down and stated the fact that his mentor was on fire. The young man looked with horror at what was happening. At some point, he simply froze from surprise. Suddenly, the blonde jumped up and began to jump on the spot, shouting that it was very hot and should be done urgently. Our hero turned his head and thought that he did not have time to help Desmond or continue to sort things out with him. Removing, the young man thought that Lao Chi plunged into sleep, killing Bai Honglei, so he should hurry to him as soon as possible. Going outside and looking around, the guy aloud said that it was already dark, which means that it took more than 5 hours to complete the assignment. Linu took the phone in his hands and saw that he had 4 unread messages, and he himself continued to think that Bai Honglei had killed a couple of hours ago. Our hero understood that the problems should be solved as they arrive, and therefore decided to start by reading messages. All messages were from Qin Xiaomei, who politely thanked the guy and invited him to have lunch, although the young man himself understood that these were all the words of the Clan 8. The young man had been waiting for a long time when this plan would begin to work and waited. Having sent the answer, Lin Luo thought that he would not wait for tomorrow to get somewhere. At this time, the girl was sitting in her bedroom and spoke to some man that he was the only, so passionate and strong. The brunette did not have time to finish to the end because she heard the sound of an incoming message that came to the phone. The blonde picked up the phone and stated that all these messages are from Linu, and therefore they are obliged to read them as quickly as possible. The young man reported that he was doing tomorrow, and therefore he could not, but suggested that he postpone the meeting from lunch for the current evening, noting that he would wait for the beauty in the bay. The young man, dressing on the go, shouted to the girl to put up order, and he should already go. Clutching her hand in a fist, Xiaomei angrily thought that only one trouble was from her former colleague. He always spoils everything. At this time, another inscription appeared on the mysterious stone. She said that after midnight a rat catastrophe would occur. The first owner of 2 professions would appear. The girl did not understand anything while her teacher professor noted that if the monolith was not lying, then a terrible disaster awaits them. With sadness in his voice, a gray-haired man noticed that it was time to prepare for something. Nothing could scare our hero, and therefore he sat on the shore and peered into the surface of the water, lit by the moonlight. Lin Law took the phone and read about the commandant's hour, which was announced tomorrow. He thought that this was the first time, and the reason is probably in the disaster. However, after a moment carefully reading the notification, the young man with horror noted for himself that this time the commandant hour was announced 5 days earlier. The guy remembered that in the first wave there was an invasion of miraculous high-ranking insects. For their destruction, it was possible to get 4 times more experience. So many rose well. However, unlike the last time, this will be much more dangerous to this. For this they fought for 15 consecutive days. Lin Lo noted to himself that he did not protect anyone who defended him in his last life. The guy simply dragged them along. But now everything was different. Our hero understood that in the end he could still protect everyone. The guy remembered his childhood. Then he was very stupid. Little Wen, seeing that the boy had fallen, took his hand and said that he would go with her, because a girlfriend wants to treat his wounds. Lin Luo recalled that when the girl's family found out that he was stealing from them, he was not angry, and even vice versa. She understood this state of affairs and accepted the young man. The guy remembered that he did not live with his relatives for long, but even despite the fact that our hero took social protection, he followed his girlfriend. The guys talked even after years, in all the most important moments of Lin. Wen was with him, who rejoiced for him and supported him. Once the girl said that a young man should work well and it is advisable to do it with her. However, when Wen was in danger, she needed the help of a guy. He was not there. Clutching his hand into a fist, our hero said loudly and angrily the name Bai Honglei, and then said that very soon he would personally kill this person. At this very time, an expensive car drove along the bay on the embankment. People from the clan were sitting in it, but they were all silent, thinking about something of their own. Suddenly, a blonde from his own thoughts was brought out by a phone call, to which he decided to answer. It was Gun Ten J, better known as Bai Honglei, who was one of the main members of the 8 clan. Xiaomei, sitting in the front seat, thought about whether there was anyone to be afraid of such a strong person as a master. Speaking on the phone, the blonde heard him told that the engagement of Princess Esuko and Miyamo will take place next month and therefore need to prepare. The young man aroused in himself the abilities of the SSS rank, and therefore believed that he is able to regain the country. Looking at the phone, the young man thought to himself about how Miyato Musashi had the right to steal from him. And after a moment, squeezing the phone, He decided that the Princess Esiko belongs to him. Soon, and the 8 clan will also be him. The blonde decided that it was necessary to find all the crystals in order to rise to the rank of SSS by the end of the current month. However, the young man was not going to do this on his own. He decided that Lin Lin would find all the necessary artifacts for him. And he knew exactly how. Turning to Xiu Mei, the guy said that he was passing her a group of brothers, but she should follow Wen Yutzi while he was under attention. Her former colleague will be forced to work for them. Hearing that the blonde is going to stay in the shade, the brunette noted that she also uses our hero to get to the collection of the Clan 8. Grinning, the young man noted that the girl is smart enough. She already knows everything that is necessary. Our hero was dozing. In a dream, he smiled and did not even know that Xiao Mei was standing on the shore and carefully studied him. The brunette thought that she managed to cope with the head of the clan, so she was convinced that she would easily deal with some kind of Lin Lo. The girl smiled more hard and began to run towards our hero, joyfully shouting his name. The beauty shouted that she was going to the young man, and he, raising, saw that she slipped slightly, not understanding what would follow further. And then something happened that the brunette was least expected. She fell to the ground right next to Lin Lo, who looked in surprise at this absurd picture. Getting up, Xiao Mei angrily reproached the young man of the fact that because of him, she fell and hit painfully. The guy did not react to this remark. He immediately moved to the essence and asked where Bai Honglei was. The girl, still sitting on the ground, looked somewhere into the distance and did not know what to tell her. She thought with horror about where this young man knew the name of the head of the clan. Having gripped the grimace of resentment and surprise, blushing, Xiao Mei began to ask what the young man was talking about. Lin Lo was not going to talk to her all night. He also did not want to play any games, and therefore grabbed a former colleague and once again asked the one where the head of the clan was located. Gazing, the beauty explained that she actually joined the Clan 8, but never saw the head with the head, but only heard his name. Hearing Lin Luke leaves, noting that the girl simply fools his head, she began to scream after him so that he did not draw hasty conclusions. She added that the truth was never met by Bai Honglei, although she asked them to accept the young man to her. While our hero called someone, Xiao Mei continued to invent that if the young man joined their company, he will have everything that he would not want. The blonde, responding to a phone call, said that the guy had long been instructed to follow Lin Law. Despite this, he was calling only now. The young man began to laugh, and then said that he mercilessly killed the girl. The opponent, having heard such an answer, asked a counter question regarding whether he was talking to Lin Lu. Our hero did not answer. He simply ordered the ill-wisher to get out of the shadow, adding that he knew where he was hiding, and therefore there was no point in doing this. Answering the girl's question about whether Lin Lin was about everything from the very beginning, he stated that he was aware of everything at all. A moment later, a blonde appeared. Crossing his hands on his chest, he said, "This was what it was worth expecting," to set himself, and noted that he had chosen a truly outstanding talent. And he added a little hesitation that it is best for a young man to join their great Clan 8, because in this case the guy will receive a lot. Lin Lo was not at a loss, and asked if the young man speaks about his plan to restore the country called Kudosawa. Hearing this, Bai Hongle immediately changed in his face. He wondered where the ordinary guy knew about this. Having taken out his blade, our hero with an impassive tone stated that they are all just people, each of whom will die. For this very moment, behind the guy's back appeared his faithful assistant Dark Emperor. Lin Lo confidently held his weapon in his hands, realizing that the advantages were on his side. The blonde through the moment screamed, "Xiao Mei," so that you would immediately clean up and did not resist. The next minute, a blonde appeared before all the gathered. Only instead of her face, she had an ugly and terrible mask of the monster. Her task was to defend Bai Honglei, and therefore she immediately entered into a fight with a double of our hero, wanting to deal with that as soon as possible. Somehow, the enemy managed to perfectly cope with the blows of the Dark Emperor, who was very dexterous. This was also alerted by Lin Lo, who did not understand how this girl was able to keep up with the speed of the double and have a high level of protection. The young man approached the Dark Emperor and stated that the tactics are good, but as soon as the owner would die, his double would instantly lose his strength. Suddenly, Bai Hongle, who noted that Lin Law was not able to break through the defense of his double, despite this, somehow trying to destroy him himself, our hero understood that this was true, and therefore he thought that he really could not hold the enemy's forces for a long time. He needed to kill him. The blonde, in turn, was thinking about the fact that Kaguya was not injured, but the level of her strength fell badly. If the owner's body reincarnates, then the probability of defeating the enemy would be high. However, each of the young people wanted only one, namely, so that the battle ends immediately. Otherwise, damage cannot be avoided. Bai Hong-le shouted loudly to the double so that she switched to a rainy night and changed his sword, and then ordered the warrior to kill the double of our hero. Linu Lo had his own plan. He called on the Lord of Prayers and made the desire that the head of the clan would no longer evade the blows of the Dark Emperor. Kaguya decided not to hesitate, and therefore the first attacked the young man's double, hoping that she could finish the battle as soon as possible. But after a minute, Bai Honglei realized that he was the main goal of the Dark Emperor, and even if his double was struck, the double Linu would still attack. The blonde decided not to hide, but to accept the battle with a double, but at the same time ordered Kaguya to kill the body of the owner, and not his assistant. And again, the girl warrior began to accelerate. She wanted to get to our hero as soon as possible. However, this did not help, since the Dark Emperor had already reached the blonde and began to beat him. A battle ensued in which the young man's double won, who was perfectly coping with his task. At that moment, Kaguya flew up to the place where the guy stood, but was in no hurry to do anything. Bai Hongle viciously talked about how these people could think that their fists are stronger than their swords. The warrior swung with all his strength. She expected what would destroy the young man with just one movement. But the next minute, Bai Honglei, looking at the cloud of dust, said, "As possible, that an ordinary person has such a lightning speed and reaction." Standing behind his opponent, Linu began to say that it was a pity that he was silent in this world. The guy did not finish the phrase, because at that moment the Dark Emperor came closer to the ill wisher, squeezed his fist and was about to strike. Our hero understood what was happening, and therefore agreed the phrase that had begun previously, that only the winners would survive, and the losers would die. Looking at Bai Lele, Lin Lin, who was lying on the ground, said that in his past life, he was able to avenge Wen's death with his own hands. The system notified the guy that he opened a new talent for the level of S robbery. But in order to activate it, you need to choose one of the 4 values of the inventory. Linu thought. He did not own any of the abilities, and therefore understood that he would have to arouse more of the natural abilities of the rank of S and higher. After some time, the young man has already mastered the ability of the right rank, which was called a rainy night. At this moment, a female leg appeared in a puddle, and the computer again reminded the guy about S. The rain effect is that the umbrella can protect against detection. A heavenly phenomenon can be caused at night, creating a small rain zone. In addition, the attack speed increases by 10%. Our heroes appeared a double of Kaguya. It was an improved version of the warrior that was previously served by Bai Honglei. The girl carefully looked at the young man and turned to him, like a master. Lin Luo knew when the rainy night talent was used paired with Kagi double, a high level of defense and attack is obtained. Even the attack speed surpasses the Dark Emperor. Moreover, the intelligence of Kaguya reached 30 points, and the warrior himself can fight independently, without the control of the master. Hearing how the young man introduced himself to the girl, she said that the young man would not worry, because she would protect him and make everything in her power. Looking at the blonde, Kaguya noted that there is a chance that when killing his enemy, a person will be able to get objects that fell out of the hands of the opponent. However, Linu Lo was surprised to note that this time for some reason all the inventory exploded. But the young man pleased that he had one lottery ticket on the Wheel of Fortune. The guy decided that it was on time because he could win the desired inventory. Our hero turned to the Lord of Prayers and realized that he had not yet come out of sleep, spent a lot of energy, and then remembered that in the secret zone in the forest there were rare objects that restore energy. Answering the question of their new assistant about whether they will go to the secret world, Lin Lin noted that for a start they should visit a more important place. At this time, the stranger called someone, but on the phone she heard a notification that the set number was temporarily unavailable. The girl was worried. She knew that the guy whom she tried to get through had never turned off the phone before, which meant that something was wrong. Suddenly, a maid entered the room. Turning to Madame Cao, she said that the time came to the elders to organize a meeting with Mr. Musasa. The beauty was silent, but to herself thought that these old people tried to make her marry some warrior to restore their country. Looking out the window, the young lady was thinking about the fact that she would be happy if this man had never returned. She remembered that she and Hun lived in the exile in China for almost a year by the name of Shi Ji Ying. It was one of the happiest moments in her life. Having picked up the phone, the girl said if Hong was here, he would definitely take her with him. They would have escaped along. Kao once again decided to dial a familiar number, but nothing changed. The number, like a few minutes earlier, did not answer. Lin Law went to the big house and stopped, waiting for something. The young man thought that if the death of Bai Honglei was discovered, then a real commotion would happen. At this time, the clan would be busy searching for the killer, and Wen would be safe. Kaguya asked the fact that Ven Yuji really liked the master, hinting at him. And withstanding a short pause, she noted with a smile that the young lady in this case can be called a guy's girlfriend. Answering the question, the young man was embarrassed and began to deny, but the girl warrior continued to say that they could be a couple in the future if they had not met before. And then she asked if Lin Lin would remain at night in this house, because the beauty probably conquered the heart of a young man. Looking at the house, the guy smiled. With calm in his voice, he stated the fact that Yuji is really very important to him. Our hero suddenly remembered the past when they walked together, and they were so good together. The guy decided that in this life he should become stronger to protect his loved ones. He would never allow the mistakes of the past life to repeat again. Suddenly, the young man became severe, and then told his assistant that it was time for them to go, although she did not understand exactly where. Removing, Linu added that they would go to the Holy Land so that the level of his strength to increase, because without this he could not. In the city center was a large pyramid, inside which energy raged. Arriving at this place, our hero politely greeted the guards and stated that he needed to go inside. One of the men said that this secret world has a high level of danger. It will require the 30th level or higher, and it will not be possible to surrender in the middle of the mission. Hearing that the young man knows about this, the guards asked to share the personal data of the player. With horror, looking through the documents, the men understood that he was facing a Dark Emperor, about whom so much has been talking about recently. Linlo did not want to waste time, and therefore asked if he could already go inside, having received an affirmative answer. One of the guards in his ear told the guy that he did not need to risk his life in order to show off in front of the girl, and therefore advised the boy to think about himself. Looking after our hero, men whispered, noting that such young people should be called real heroes. Not having time to go inside, the system immediately reported that the Kaguya double-crossed the 8th level because it destroyed the 30-level monsters. But this did not end there. The girl saw the opponents who threatened Lin Law, and therefore dealt with them as quickly and efficiently as possible. These were terrible creatures, although some caused pity, but it was just a trick to prevent people from going to this place. The young man who looked at everything that was happening was in surprise how the warrior easily straightens out with all the entities. Drinking a drink, the young man noted how good it was that he took Kaguya with him, realizing that she understood the rules of the game. Only a few minutes passed, and the blonde already sat on one knee and closed her umbrella. The beauty turned to her master and reported that she killed all enemies in this area. The young man was pleased, and therefore sincerely praised his double. Linu said that the essence of the mission in this world is to help the elves protect their settlement, protect against foreign enemies. The fragments of the divine crystals that the elves themselves grow are the same as the crystals of the super resistances, and the tree in front of them can restore energy. The girl asked if they helped the elves protect their settlement, then they would receive a reward, and the young man noted that this is often the case. The young man recalled that in a past life some players killed ugly monsters after the defense of the elves was broken. Then it was possible to get many fragments of crystals. Moving forward, the guy aloud said that in this case he would have to wait a very long time. And, after hesitation, he said that he would have to wait for a successful case, and thought to himself that obtaining a small reward could be pleasant, as well as possessing exclusive access to resources. Suddenly, a fiery flash hit some small wall. The elf shouted loudly that the city walls were broken, and therefore everyone should urgently begin to retreat. The young man rushed forward, ordering her assistant on the go to do her job too, because it was time to enter the battle. At the entrance, there were some strange creatures of small size, but it is impossible to understand how dangerous they were. Suddenly, our heroes noticed how these entities began to stand on each other, creating a mountain. After a second, they formed a predator who was the captain of the ugly monster. During a strong anger, this creature could shoot deadly rays. The predator began to be annoyed because he drew the attention of not the ill-wishers right in front of him. Our hero shouted to his companions that he had received more than expected, although he did not specify what was about. The king turned to Lin Law and said how this man dared to steal his food, hinting that he was most likely looking for death. The guy was silent, but at that moment he took out a crystal from his pocket and lifted it over him. A moment later, Lin Lu shouted so that his assistant Lord of Prayers awakened, and as soon as possible, opening his eyes, the young man happily reported that he had a lot of power in him, for which he thanked his master. The young man stated that the Dark Emperor applies the next attack. He needs to be destroyed. and therefore the attack should be carried out until the captain monster would die. The Lord of Prayers triumphantly stated that the desire will be fulfilled. The amount of energy is spent based on the scale of desire. The leader, seeing a whole team, growled and angry. He was ready to deliver a crushing blow. The guy ordered Kaguya to urgently change the shape of a sword of a rainy night, because all his strength must be directed to the Dark Emperor. His attacks would help them all defeat. The girl opened her umbrella with lightning speed and screamed that she would do everything as it should. And it was just the way, because the next second everyone saw the blow of the king, who came on the umbrella. Small monsters rejoiced. They understood that their leader is the most powerful creature that people could not cope with. The girl retorted between swords and other objects that actively flew in her direction. The Dark Emperor did it. The leader did not expect such a turn of events, and therefore carefully looked at the doubles of our hero. Suddenly, the system sent a notification, which stated that Kaguya was able to strike the monster's captain and receive a reward for this. Further, the computer began to send other reports that the Dark Emperor achieved the same success. The leader stopped for a while, thinking his further actions. After a moment, he began to scream as much as he could, realizing that the enemy was serious. Our heroes saw that at that moment a powerful energy stream began to emanate from the monster, which literally blinded. Understanding this, Lin Lin told everyone in the audience that it was a destructive light of death, and asked Kaguya to defend himself, not sparing his strength. With every minute, the light became brighter. It seemed that the monster was not going to joke. He was doing his best to destroy the guys. The girl warrior kept an umbrella from everyone, but it became more and more complicated. At some point, it seemed that the forces were equal. The umbrella could hardly withstand, although the flow of energy could not last constantly. Lin Luo thought that Kaguya had the ability of a powerful attack and high defense. It is a pity that her vital energy is consumed so quickly. This destructive light of death seriously consumes the energy of the double. And even the Dark Emperor has lost a certain amount of force. The guy shouted so that his assistant to take advantage of the time after the main blow and attacked. The enemy fights at full power. The Dark Emperor was not going to give up or give slack, and therefore he tuned in and began to do what he was ordered. Our heroes began their attack, realizing that there may not be a different opportunity. At this moment, the computer again began to signal a certain success, thanks to which additional points were awarded. Suddenly, all the audience drew attention to the small monsters, which were also destroyed. The system informed that the player managed to defeat the captain of ugly monsters. The young man had a sufficient amount of experience to activate one more ability to his profession. 10 swords. Pressing on the treasured button, Lin Lin twisted in a powerful stream and slightly lifted above the ground. The guy saw the monsters still remained on the ground, or rather what was left of them. Although some rose to the level of a young man, about to inflict damage to him, but our hero did not worry. He smiled and expected something, knowing that he was already a winner. Suddenly, a young man called on his help to 1,000 swords, the very inventory that he could claim. Lin Luo collected energy in his hands in order to direct it in the right direction. Looking at the predators, the young man unexpectedly ordered the swords to do his job and destroy these opponents of all, up to one. Our hero jumped joyfully, so that the message was as strong as possible and effective. The young man, squeezing his fist, noted for himself that the power of attacks increased very much, and combat power did not decrease during a double blow. This is good. But if the guys stop the attack for at least a second, but they will suffer a lot of damage, and this will be unforgivable. When the magician reaches the first level, he has two new professions, the restoration of magic and the absorption of magic. Thanks to the first ability, it is possible to accelerate the restoration of vital energy, and the second allows you to absorb the energy of monsters. It is good that there is an opportunity to think and choose the right ability to put it into practice, but I want it to be a spare option. Such force can be used only once. Approaching the tree, the guy said that he wanted to see how many more fragments of the Crystal of God he could knock out. Lin Luo gathered all his strength and accelerated. He understood that he should try very well. A powerful fire stream hit the trunk with such force that the sound of glass was heard in the air. These were crystals that fell into the hand of a young man. He noted that he now has more than 100 fragments, which is equal to 5 SS supercrystals. This is the advantage of levels. If the player advances in levels too quickly, then in the next times the fragments of the crystals of God can be much less. Smiling, the young man said that it was time to use 10 twig of the Wheel of Fortune, and therefore called on his prayer lord to help. While the young man bowed, our hero invited him to eat 2 potions to extend the life of the level S. and noted that he regrets that he had to spend a lot of energy. The double, in turn, said that he suggests Lin Law not to change his desire, but to add one restriction. After a moment raising his hand, our hero ordered the Wheel of Fortune to appear right in front of him to try good luck. Vladika warned that in 10 cups, items must appear above the level of S, and among the presented level S and higher, the prolongation potion would no longer appear. The young man was happy because he came across a gold legend that cools the crystal of the SS level. He makes it possible to reduce the time to restore strength after the battle. The young man squeezed Jewel in his hand to feel all her energy. Lin Lo noted that thanks to this, he will be able to arouse 2 professions of level S and even higher. In any case, the magical crystal of intelligence, level S, allows you to increase intelligence by 10 points. Although the Lord immediately spoke, who suggested to the master to give this intellectual crystal to the double, which most needs him, our hero knew that Kugei's intelligence was 30 points, the Lord of 180, while the Dark Emperor had only 1, although he asked who to give the jewel. But before making a final decision, the young man asked that they could give intellect points, and the Vladika explained that the mind is not the same thing as wisdom or quick wit. This is the ability to solve problems quickly. The higher the meaning of intelligence, the faster you learn knowledge and gain experience. It is this ability to manifest in battle, in communication, and another. The young man knew that the Dark Emperor attacks only with the help of rough power, and as the monsters become higher, their power prevailed over him, exposing him in an unprofitable light. It seems that this double is most in need of this crystal. Approaching his faithful assistant, our hero handed him the crystal, saying that this is the thing that would undoubtedly come in handy. The double squeezed the jewel in his fist as if it was something most valuable and necessary. The young man looked at the Dark Emperor and was glad that he had such an excellent team. The double eyes shone. He was glad of such a gift and therefore sincerely thanked the master for his care and generosity. And after a moment, he added that now he has everything to remove obstacles on the path of Lin Lo. The young man said that when he became older, he will no longer need the help of our hero, since he himself will be able to control the highest level. Giving his head, the guy noted that the increase in experience is never as fast as with direct robbery. Turning to the Lord of Prayers, our hero said that these 2 crystals would give him the opportunity to increase his limit of the energy of life. And while he was tuned, the guy asked the double to help him find another ability of the level of S for their weekly journey. At this time, interesting events took place in the school court. Someone pushed an unknown boy with such force that he flew right on the garbage tanks. The unfortunate turned to the classmate, saying that he would not go so far. Nevertheless, they study at the same school. But he, looking at the teenager, said that he had already awakened the talent of level A. Therefore, once he would be left alone, and he would live his life. At that moment, the guy, around whom the fiery force gathered, quickly got up and headed forward. Having gained courage, he asked if the classmate was overgrown, and, pouncing with his fists on the ill wisher, he shouted that he had beaten his face the last time. But was he chatting too much, trying to urinate him on his head? The young man was about to strike, but at that moment his hand was braided by a kind of strong vine. The classmate looked at this and smiled, saying that during this period of time many hide their true power, but there is nothing strange in this. The unfortunate shouted. He did not understand how it was possible, because even 1 out of 1,000 people could not get the ability with the level of S. But the ill-wisher succeeded. Standing connected, he shouted, "Was the Tao slightly above the devil himself?" The guys stood opposite each other and were silent. But Linu saw the picture of what was happening. Although he was far from the scene, closing his face with his hand, he stated that this is all fine, and his next purpose is robbery, and therefore it is necessary to act as quickly as possible. And again, Zadira turned to Yang Yun and asked why the baby is now behaving silently and did not try to do something. At this moment, another classmate said that it was time to contact Joe brother and find out why he had the ability of level S, and his brother only A. Hearing about this, the teenager began to scream and break out with all his might, which had fun as offenders. A guy with blue hair noted that John Yun would go with them to make amends in front of a green demon. Suddenly, the guys heard someone's voice, who stated the fact that it was too late. Despite this, classmates are in the schoolyard. The young girl looked at the offender and said that the teenager is his classmate, and therefore the guy has no right to intimidate him only because of his ability. Jan Yun with hope looked at the teacher Chen. Although he did not understand what she could do, the guys shouted to Joe that the teacher came, although he did not understand why they were so panicked. Directing his strength towards the girl, The ill-wisher joyfully stated that since she had learned about everything, now he had nothing to worry about. Teacher Chen, who was now also chained by plants with parasites, turned to the student and asked what he allows himself. Going closer to the teacher, Zhou said, "He knows that they are secretly admired by such talented teenagers like him," and then asked if she knew what he was going to do. The plant parasite began to crawl along the girl's leg, which frightened her even stronger. The teacher tried to resist with all her might, but she did not succeed, because Liana wrapped herself even stronger around her body. Zhu heard a classmate threatening him, but he only smiled, saying that as soon as he finishes Miss Chen, he would immediately deal with him. Only a few seconds passed, and the plant released a girl who collapsed to the ground with a roar. Surprised, Zhou looked around, not understanding who was behind him. He saw his friends were amazed at fire, and for the first time this evening the young man became scared. Not wanting to show his own fear, the guy shouted that everyone who came to the courtyard was cleaned up because they have no concepts with whom they contacted. Instead, the teenager saw how someone began to get out of the darkness. His leg appeared the first. Lin Law was silent and smiled. He was in no hurry to deal with this worthless man. Our hero, with calmness in his voice, asked if the guy is Zhou Yu. The young man was alert and said that he did not remember that someone had someone with the ability of the level of S at their school, and therefore asked a counter question regarding who Linu is. But the young man was not going to bother the enemy with an answer. He raised his hand, snapped his fingers, and called for the Lord of Prayers. Realizing that he was already behind him, our hero said that in just 30 seconds, someone would be very painful, hinting at the ill-wisher. The faithful assistant gladly stated that everything would be done as it should. For the first time in the evening, Zhou began to get nervous. He insulted his opponent, and at the same time he asked who he imagined himself and how he ended up in this yard. Linu said that it does not matter who he is because the guy has only 3 seconds in order to come up with the last words. However, he began to scream. How can it be that the guy does not have a double? And then said that if our hero does not get out, he would be uneasy. But the young man stood as if dug. He waited, and was in no hurry to do anything. Only a few seconds passed, and the guy looked at the Dark Emperor, who also did not take his eyes off Zhou. With an indifferent look, Lin ordered his assistant to deal with this bad person. The frightened young man again began to ask how many doubles have, and how they can control them. In the next instant, the Dark Emperor struck the ill-wisher, but he managed to deviate in time. Trying to do the same again, the double was faced with the fact that Liana chopped his hand, preventing him from moving his brush. The assistant of our hero stopped, not understanding what was happening, and also expecting the next order, which did not follow. Zhou smiled triumphantly, thinking that he managed to win, and therefore ordered the green demon to destroy his opponent. Linu did not scare this. He realized that he was disabled his emperor for a while, but he still had Kaguya, and therefore called her to help. The girl jumped over the back of the young man. She began to chop the green plant on the move. The beauty did not stop, realizing that the fate of both the Dark Emperor and the young man depend on her actions. Not much time has passed, and the remnants of an evil plant were already lying at the feet of our hero. Zhu began to make excuses. He said that he was a victim because John Yun mocked his brother, and he simply came to defend his rights and did everything for justice. However, the unfortunate guy whom they mocked began to scream so that Zhou did not say nonsense. This was not true. Linu said that the enemy is worthless. He committed terrible acts. Although owning power, he could fight evil, and therefore no one would give him a chance. Craving to the teacher, the young man began to ask her to take pity on him and intercede, because he wanted to recover and enter the university in the future. Miss Chen carefully looked at the student, but did not understand what she could answer him, after all that this person was going to commit with her. Kaguya, standing behind Zhou, was already waving her sword, realizing that he could not spare him, since he would be only problems. The young man continued to reach out to his teacher, but was silent, realizing that he was unlikely to save him. The teacher jumped out of her seat and screamed when she saw the body of Zhou in front of her. Our hero said that this caddy still wanted to get help from the one he offended. He could do something good for the world, but instead continued to sow evil and death for such happiness. Raising his hand, the young man said that now is the time to activate the new robbery. Lin Lo heard the system notified that the new ability now belongs to a young man. The unfortunate teenager went up to our hero and thanked that. And then he asked if he wanted to say anything, because he was constantly silent. The young man smiled slightly, but the next instant he turned to his assistant, to the Dark Emperor, and, moving away, he began to tell his assistants that Firstly, it was time for them to go. And secondly, I really want to eat. And therefore, you need to find a cozy institution. With a smile on his face and with joy in his voice, the guy shouted that the time would come and he would become as strong as the Dark Emperor. Sitting in a cafe, the young man thought that the description of his new ability is too generalized because she promises to extract the entities of the two monsters and mix them together. But the ability lasts 5 minutes. The guy was also embarrassed by the fact that the waiting time is 1 day, although he decided that he could try the ability in a real battle. Our hero concentrated and then ordered a green demon to awaken in him. Through a moment, Lin Lin aloud said that Cogd had received this strength, as if he had felt a dozen new hands that were moving freely. Studying the characteristics of his new ability, the young man was surprised to find that the greens cannot be disabled with a dull blow. But the sword and power of Kaguya is a completely different matter. Although the Dark Emperor has many interesting attacks and a special level of protection against spells, so he can also be considered a good double. With stretching, the young man happily reported that he solved all the questions, and therefore the time came to treat his assistants with a delicious chicken. All the audience began to note that this was a wonderful food. They thanked the young man for the excellent opportunity to have a great dinner. The young man picked up the phone and began to carefully study the menu, deciding to order what he and his friends would like. Having made an order, the young man noted that he would have to wait a bit before they bring them to eat. After a while, a waiter came to clarify whether it was true that the guy ordered 300 rolls, 300 burgers, 200 slices of delicate beef, 100 hamburgers not sharp, 400 bottles of cola. Hearing that there is no such amount of food in the restaurant, Linu said that in this case, let them bring what is in the institution. Looking out the window, our hero thought that in 6 months the problem with food would become global. The space crystal could store food from the moment it will be placed in it, so it is worth stocking up in advance. Kaguya, coming closer, drew the attention of all those gathered in the weather. The girl noted that the street was getting worse and worse. The young man looked with horror in front of him. He was going to say something, but he could not choose the right words. Taking the phone in his hands, Linlo read to everyone present that there was a rat in level of rat. This is the plague of insects that flew from another dimension. At that moment, terrible sounds were heard on the street. A terrible and huge beetle showed his mouths, which could have had a bite at a time. The young girl, who fled away, screamed and prayed for help. She explained that something inexplicable was happening. The brunette noted for herself that the monster's claws grabbed her by the gate. The unfortunate thought that she was all over, realizing that the baby also began to whimper in her arms. Having stumbled, the girl fell. She saw how a terrible beetle hung over her, about to eat. The stranger from the last forces screamed and prayed for help. She saw how the child pressed against her, realizing that the claw was increasingly pulling her by the hood. Suddenly, the girl felt that no one else was pulling her back, and heard the sound of tearing fabric. In front of her arose Linu Lin, who, slightly hugging the brunette, became in front of her to protect in the event of a beetle attack. After a few seconds, the young man came closer to the monster, realizing that it would not be difficult to cope with that. In addition to a huge monster, small insects flew along the street, which seemed to guard their leader. The young man, experiencing fate, came as close as possible to the beetle, demonstrating his own determination and fearlessness. Turning to the Lord of Prayers, Linu said that he wanted to make a desire, which will be that white smoke around him should be dispelled. In the next instant, a huge pillar of light appeared next to our hero. It seemed that this energy could destroy all the evil that was around. The spider stood opposite our hero. He was exhausted and carefully watched what would happen later. And then it happened that the guy began to actively tighten the energy flows, realizing that on his own, I wanted to deal with monsters. In one powerful movement, the young man cut a monster that did not expect anything like it. While the young man was looking at his triumph, the system notified that the Dark Emperor managed to kill Monster Spider, for which he again accrued his experience points. Linu Lo out loud said that he would not receive additional equipment and objects, but at least he got 4 times more experience than it was. And at this time, small spiders flew next to our hero, which did not show special activity but were unsafe. Therefore, the young man asked Kaguya and the Dark Emperor to go out in order to kill the remaining monsters and increase his level. The girl did not have to explain something twice. She immediately left the shelter and began to deal with the locust, and quite successfully, which the computer informed. The same applies to the Dark Emperor, who did not hesitate, but eliminated one beetle after another. Despite the fact that our heroes coped with their task perfectly, a sufficiently enough different monsters flew over the city. One of the strangers turned to the other and asked if it was true that he sees the merger of a stranger and mantis in front of him. Realizing that this was all like some kind of joke, the young man noted that for ordinary people this is a real disaster. Then for them who have woken up real abilities, this is a great success. The audience carefully watched the monsters but did nothing. The monk said that initially only 6 days after Universal Awakening the first owner of the second profession appeared. In response, the brunette said that the night before the Dark Emperor switched to the second level of creation so that the first wave of disaster of the rat level also came ahead of schedule. Another person noted that nothing terrible happened, and if they use in their favor the tendency of insects to the light, they will be able to complete the second circle of consciousness. At this moment, the monk knocked out glass with one powerful movement. The men who were behind realized that it was time to act and show what they were capable of, and the monk shouted that soon they would be able to compare who is stronger and who achieved any results. After a large-scale series of murders, the beetles seemed to overcome their instinct for the search for light and did not dare to come too close to the lighted buildings. Although Lin Lo understood that this was temporary, and therefore returning to the restaurant, the young man ordered his assistants to protect this place. Having followed his order, our hero told everyone those present that he fears that in the next days 10 of them will not look for them, and therefore it is better not to go out and wait for salvation. And after a little hesitation, he added that there is enough food in the restaurant so as not to die. The young man heard that the stranger asked him to take her with him, but he said that it was dangerous. Safer to turn off the light, close all the windows, save food and water and wait for the Salvation Army. Leaving, the young man once again noted that China will come to the rescue of its citizens. Only you need to wait for it. On the threshold, our hero stopped. He understood that he should move forward, but something held him. The young man with horror noted to himself that for some reason he had a strange and bad foreboding. He thought about whether he had missed something important this time. It was still dark and cold outside, it was drizzling fine rain, and everything was shrouded in fog. Lin Lo remembered the past and understood that the course of events changed, so that the disaster was ahead of the schedule. But Wano could cope with this and hold out. At that moment, another beetle hung over a resident of the city, who could not budge with horror and screamed loudly. The monk, who was nearby, loudly stated that he had arrived. The elder, who was behind him, apparently was a double, and therefore he took out a powerful stick. In the next instant, something inexplicable happened, as a result of which the beetle crushed a huge fireball. Seeing closer and giving the girl a hand, the monk proudly stated that he had saved her, and then asked what she was ready to pay him for such a generous service. The brunette did not answer, because a powerful stream of light killed the remaining bugs approaching them. One of the young people standing behind turned to Mr. Liu and offered his help. The man displeasedly told Katairo that his desire to get new experience scares, although the guy did not understand why he could not help at such a difficult time. Another guy with relief noticed that the monster was defeated, and therefore he asked if no one would object if he uses what was left of the monster. The young man began to say that all he does is for King Zhukov. Touching the monster, the young man said that he rebelled, but for now he was manipulating. The monk said that this is the very ability of the King of Shadows. And then he added that Lao Yu found really powerful partners. Our hero fled as fast as he could, realizing that he was chasing not only a giant locust, but also other bugs of mutants. Running past the monk and Lao Yu, it seemed that Linu did not even notice them. Unlike the guys who noted the speed of a stranger for themselves, the guys discussed that our hero, just like them, fight monsters. The men suggested that this guy probably had some abilities, thanks to which he made his way out and escaped. This surprised the young man in a costume most, but he said nothing. Linu, running the street behind the street, thought that according to the initial forecast, Wen had to survive this disaster. Knocking on the door, the guy asked to immediately open the door for him, because he wanted to make sure that the family was safe. From behind the door there was a voice that asked, "This is Yuji, who was returning." The woman opened the door, carefully looked at our hero and even named him by name. She explained that her aunt had not yet returned, and Yuji also did not come. Given that the mobile network did not catch, she did not know what was happening to them. The young man was angry, and at the same time scared. He thought that something had happened for sure. Otherwise, everyone would be already at home. The guy reassured the woman, saying that he would find everyone. At the same time, he warned whether she would in no case open the door and windows in any case. Running out of the front door, the young man looked at the house, convinced that the aunt fulfilled his instructions. At the same time, the young man thought that in such a situation without awakening combat ability, Meeting with monsters is a direct road to death. Making his way through a white veil, the guy thought that everything should be good with the girl, which he was hoping for. Our hero was not going to shoot down the speed, although he suddenly heard his double shouted something, and therefore decided to hurry towards the heard voice. The Dark Emperor shouted that he found a man who was unconscious. The double understood that it was a girl, but without an order of his master was not going to do anything. With sadness in the voice of Lin Luan, he said that the unfortunate person no longer helped. It seems that the scale of the disaster has increased, so Yuji needs to be found as soon as possible. The young man turned to the Lord of Prayers and asked if he could find Ven's whereabouts. The double opened his book, which was supposed to help in search. A moment later, a certain semblance of a map with dots that showed the location of the girl appeared before our hero. With seriousness in the voice of Lin Lu, he mentally asked his friend to hold out until he came. The mutants went near one of the buildings. He carefully examined him, preventing people from going out or entering inside. The girls sitting inside discussed what to do next, and came to the conclusion that people from the organs would come and save all the inhabitants. At this moment, a young man who was sitting a little further began to panic and shout that the end of the world had come, which means that humanity was waiting for imminent death. Suddenly, the young man with distraught eyes looked towards the women, but at the same time he remained silent. Although the next instant the guy jumped off his place and rushed aside the unfamiliar, the girls were sitting, squeezing into a corner. They shouted and asked the young man what happened to why he was sticking to them. The distraught shouted that he was living one moment, that the higher forces did not just bring them together, and therefore they should also die together. The girls tried in every possible way to reassure the guy, and then said that he should understand. Firstly, each has their own interests, and secondly, they look at him simply like a fellow traveler. The young man grabbed Yuji and shouted again. He said that he would look at the beauty down, so she should not harden her nose much. A friend ran up and took the young man by the hand. She screamed so that he would immediately let go of the girl and sat in his place. But the guy was beside himself with fear, and therefore, with force, hit the young woman who had attacked him and said that she had no more to go to him. The stranger carefully looked at Wen and stated that, since everything was already happening, he at least wants to die without regret. The girl sat silently for several seconds, trying to gather her thoughts. With tears in her eyes, the beauty said that the young man would not touch her, so that he simply sat down and calmed down. Having hit Yuji on his cheek, the stranger shouted again. He said that the girl was silent, noting that his fellow travelers allow themselves too much. The young man pressed himself against Wen, who had no idea that she was waiting further, but it seemed that she had no strength to fight. At that moment, a crack of glass was heard. The young man in a panic screamed that beetles came behind them. However, the guy did not have time to look around. He felt a powerful stream of energy hit him and threw back him. Linu Luke slightly hugged his familiar, and she was surprised to ask if he really came for her. Our hero immediately began to ask Ven's forgiveness, noting that he was late, although he had to immediately come as soon as the invasion began. The ill-wisher shouted to the young man that the beetles would come to them now, and then everyone would come to an end. Despite this, he decided to lead himself like a gentleman. The guy was not going to explain anything. He simply became a half-turn and turned to the Dark Emperor. The double immediately ran to the enemy and struck it, although not very strong. The young man screamed and began to fall back. Although in some ways it was a theater trick, he continued to yell and say that he was released, while our hero was parallel to be interested in how he dared to touch Yuji. However, the young man did not calm down. He did not hear anyone and did not want to do this, and therefore just screamed so that someone would take pity on him and save. Finally, Lin Lu was tired of this whole performance, and therefore he came closer to the opponent and made him speak. With horror on his face, the guy shouted that he would tell everything that they wanted from him. Only the Dark Emperor should unclench his hand. The double immediately threw back the young man to the other end of the room, but he decided not to be indignant, so as not to feel the wrath of this double on himself again. Our hero stood silently. Wen pressed against him and was also in no hurry to say something, and the offender hugged Lin La by his feet, began to cry and lament, saying that his brother did not understand everything, and in fact he was not going to cause evil to the girl, and therefore he had to spare him. The young man with a cold gaze circled the ill-wisher and asked if it was all. A moment later, Lin La noted that he could offer the stranger two options. The first is that he will score him to death. As for the second, the guy can go outside and find his destruction there, although he may be lucky, and he will be able to escape. Looking towards the door with horror, the ill-wisher announced that he was choosing the second option, and then he began to thank our hero for mercy. Looking at how the enemy is moving away, Linu turned to the Lord of Prayers and said that he wanted to make a desire to attack 200 ferocious beetles in 5 minutes on the enemy. And the young man, running out, was thinking about the fact that he came across fools. He himself would hide in a safe place where he would leave, and he would eat all in this. But before the young man had time to think up his thought to the end, as one of the Zhukov grabbed him by the jacket and carried it somewhere, once on the roof, the stranger drew attention to the fact that hordes of various mutants flying to him that are not going to retreat. The young man shouted and asked that at least someone would come to his aid, but except for a huge number of beetles, there was nobody nearby. Linu at that time hugged his friend and talked about the fact that everything was already behind, and therefore she could relax a bit. Answering the question of UG about whether the offender's guy released, he said that, of course, no, because he offended the most important person in his life. And after a moment, he added that that person will die from fangs of ferocious beetles. But in this case, he will be able to pay only 1% of all his sins. Confused, the girl timidly thanked her friend for saving her not only mutants, but also from the ill wisher. Suddenly, Kaguya intervened in the conversation. She asked, "Now Miss Wen will become his beloved girl." Lin Lo was blushed. He was ashamed to show his true feelings, and therefore turning to the double, he said that she would not say nonsense. Kaguya did not understand such behavior, and therefore asked why she was saying something wrong, because the young man himself said a minute ago that UG was very important for him. And again, Lin Linu flooded his face when his double asked whether the girl does not like the girl. The young man began to deny, explaining that, of course, there was nothing like that and he was simply misunderstood. Miss Wen was surprised. Perhaps she wanted to say something, but at that moment her friend, who lost her head, came into consciousness. Yuji immediately rushed to the red-haired beauty and began to hug her, glad that it was all good. Answering a friend's question, the girl noted that nothing terrible happened to her, only her head aches. Hungry at the familiar young lady looking at Lin Lo, shouted that this guy was a bully. Yuji was a little embarrassed, and then explained that this was not the young man who attacked them, but her comrade, whom she has known for many years. The girl asked if she understood everything correctly, but to herself, thought that this young man was pretty. Going to the exit, the young man told everyone in the audience that it was unsafe to stay in this place, and therefore it was necessary to rush. Standing at the door, young people heard someone from the other side talked about the fact that the door should be opened. Their own came. A joyful woman opened the door and met her daughter. She began to ask right in the corridor if everything was fine, not believing her happiness. A moment later, the girl rushed into the arms of her mother and began to cry, repeating how glad she was to return. Sitting in the living room, Yuji noted that Wen should not worry about Wen because they sent her home. The mistress of the house, sitting down next to our hero, sincerely thanked him for everything that he had done for their family. Answering the daughter's question about where the father is located, she replied that he was a government official, and therefore said that he would spend all the time at work. Our hero did not like something in this response, and therefore he asked if Mr. Wen called to work. The young man remembered that the man worked in the city office in the city center, and there everything is on light. This means that the beetles can calmly get inside the building. The woman heard a young man eager for the city center in order to visit their relative, but tried their best to stop him. However, Lin Lu did not listen to them. The guy reassured all the audience and said that he would return the man into integrity, and he himself would return. Approaching the building, the young man said aloud that there was no doubt that a flock of beetles had already passed the structure, although the glass at first glance were intact. Although after a moment of our hero something alerted, he felt that the energy in this place was not like that. Linulo knew for sure that the monsters in the rat-level disaster have a maximum of level 20, so they could not feel this kind of energy. Suddenly, on one of the upper floors, the young man saw some strange flash. He stood still for a few seconds, evaluating the situation and thinking what to do next. Looking in front of him with horror, the guy said out loud that this was a guard of all this devilry. A rat catastrophe is also known as a disaster of Category E, usually varies from 1 to level 20. If monsters appear with the ancestor, their level will be higher than that of the catastrophe. Such monsters are called the guards of the ancestor. Only by killing the guard can stop the catastrophe in a certain area. In a past life, before getting into the era of chaos, the government decided to deal with the one who surrounded and suppressed the guards. Those who coped with the task received a generous reward. Linluo did not believe that he met him here, not understanding whether he was lucky or not, and therefore should prepare. At the same time, one man shouted to another inside the building so that he fled as quickly as possible, because beetles follow them. The employee ran into one of the doors, leaving the monster in the corridor. After a moment, he snapped the door behind him and snapped the castle. The man ordered Lao Gi's to immediately move the closet to block the door, noting that if the monster does not penetrate, they would be saved. Not much time passed, and the workers already pushed a huge closet, which was supposed to be their salvation. Everything was not bad, but only the same energy that our hero felt, standing on the street in front of the chancellery, penetrated the room. The men did not understand what it was, and therefore followed what was happening. This veil negatively influenced people. For example, one employee closed his nose with his hand because he felt an unpleasant smell, and the other took his head. Suddenly, a mirror crashed in the room, which scared the workers to half-death. Lao Ji turned to Mr. Wan with the assumption that the insect is no longer moving. Steps were not heard in the corridor, and therefore decided that it left the building. But after a moment they knocked on the door. Lin Lu called his friend, is interested in whether he was in this room. If so, let him open the door. The men hastened to open and went out into the corridor, noting that the veil had not gone anywhere. Despite this, our hero stood there. He smiled and said that he and Uncle Wen had not seen each other for a long time. The young man crushed the beetle, who was lying on the floor, showing that he could cope with these creatures. At this time, 4 men walked along the street, some of whom was a monk. They saw what was happening, but they were silent. They heard a universal notification that the Dark Emperor was the following level by the game. Although a person in a suit did not understand how this is possible, the man was indignant, noting that this boy Lilish of his several major achievements, which would help to achieve severe awakening, and now the secret worlds ended earlier than he thought. Another person noted that the guy alone cleared the secret kingdom of level 30 to 35 if this kingdom continued the struggle, whether the energy of the double could withstand it. The businessman was of little interest to this. He continued to be angry that someone was able to conquer the level first. The monk suggested that the Dark Emperor returned from the future, which was confirmed by Lao Yu. It was not clear to him what ability he used to take his strength from him. And then everyone began to reflect that the only minus of their abilities of the SS level is that their doubles have become too strong, they require a lot of energy. A man in a suit sharply stated that they have little time. It was necessary to examine a few more secret places until a competitor got to them. And, adjusting the tie, he thought to himself that the time would come when they would certainly meet. Sitting at home, Mr. Wen asked our hero where such forces came from such as to easily fight the monster. Lin Lo calmly explained that the talent of level S was awakened in him, which was very surprised by the man. He did not believe how this is possible, and therefore began to tell that only physical strength was awakened in him, and his wife noted that she had intellectual abilities. While Yuji talked about the fact that she now hears music better and sings, our hero plunged into his own thoughts. Suddenly, parents began to ask the guy about all his abilities, about what he began to do better. The young man did not know what he could answer, but this was not needed because a girl came to the rescue who began to say that one could not ask such a direct. The woman quickly translated the topic of the conversation and began to note that Linu had grown, so that she could not get used to what is ethical in relation to him and what was not. However, our hero did not want to look ignorant, and therefore he himself said that justice awakened in him, which gives him incredible power to attack. Yuji began to praise the guy, and then asked to take her with him when he would go to clean the dungeon, because she was afraid to go there herself. Mr. Wen suddenly spoke, noting that each generation has its own talents, and since the world undergoes changes, the young man should take the opportunity. Lin Lu smiled, noting that this is so, and therefore he will do everything that depends on him. Having bowed, the father of the family once again thanked the young man and said that they had a guest room where the guy could spend the night. Not expecting such a turn of events, our hero began to deny, but the girl did not see anything bad in it, and therefore said to stay. Mr. Wen noted that he once lost touch with a boy who lived in an orphanage for many years, but today, he saved his life. Sitting on the bed, the guy thought that unexpectedly in this life saved the father and daughter of the Wen family, but could not stay with them for a long time, because the life of his own brother is standing at Khan. Lin Luo understood that he had a lot of things they had to be done, although I did not want to leave the house in which he was. However, now the priority was to improve their own strength as well as find another double of S. At this time, some unknown guy pronounced a spell, the essence of which was to arouse the demon of despair. Suddenly, a large and powerful hand appeared in the fire, indicating that everything worked out. Following this hand was a fierce monster. He shouted that there was a beautiful smell around whom he had been waiting for a long time. The monster extended a hand forward, noting that he felt in himself strength and power. The young man shouted joyfully that a double level of SS appeared in front of him. But the most pleasant thing is that now this double belonged to him. Suddenly the demon spoke. He stated that his servant should sacrifice his own despair and fear. And only after that the young man will be given an unthinkable force. The kid, sitting on the floor, appealed to his father, but he was so stupefied that he did not hear his own child. Turning around, the stranger looked at his daughter and said that he needed to go to the store to buy food, and the girl should still sit at home and wait for him. With a smile on her face, Croc said that she would do everything as she was told and will look forward to her father's return. At this time, a monster was already in the room who looked after the departing man and called him Ze. The frightened daughter of a man carefully looked after all but could not utter a word. Remaining in complete solitude, she called her father, who had already left, and therefore did not hear her. Having become a parapet, our hero said that thanks to his ability to smile, he managed to kill 15 people, including Lumina and Zhou. But 2 more, besides himself, were able to arouse in themselves the talent of level S. This is Hu Jinmin and Go Tao. The young man turned to the Lord of Prayers and said, he wants to know where Hu Jinming is currently. A moment later, the young man said that he did what he was asked. Smiling, the young man joyfully stated that now he knew exactly what he should do next. For a moment, Lin Lin accelerated and jumped down. Using his strength and capabilities, the young man happily noted that the hunting season can be considered open. At this very time, the system notified that the double of Jai killed a large number of different insects, for which additional points were charged the hero. The young man was happy. He said that you can quickly increase his level, while nothing needs to be done. Against the backdrop of euphoria, the man noted that he wants to see who dares to mock him, while hearing his double wants to say something. The monster said that he was still too weak, and the souls of bees and other insects bring very little strength, and the fear that they lead is negligible to strengthen their teeth. Not understanding what he was talking about, the guy asked for what to do, and the double said that only fear generated by a human soul could restore powerful power. Jasa was horrified to realize that the monster wanted them to kill people together, which was a real shock. Judged by the words of the monster, the young man noted that he would do everything from him to have a lot of strength. With one powerful movement, the monster broke the door, which allowed to freely go into the apartment. The frightened married couple screamed who the people who complained to them are, and why did they come at all? But the double did not answer the question. He told his owner that these people emanated a very pleasant smell, a rich and tasty smell of animal fear. Grabbing the knife, the owner of the house ran to the opponents. He shouted so that his wife and child fled. He could protect them and win the time. Suddenly, the girl noticed how her husband stopped. The monster injured him, but how much the mistress of the apartment did not understand. And the monster continued to laugh, noting that the power from human fear is much higher than that of monsters, and therefore brings such a great pleasure. Suddenly, Jai was seeing. He thought that the double, which he himself gave rise to, is someone very terrible, someone who cannot be controlled. The monster sat over the body of an unfortunate young man and devoured his energy. Suddenly, it screamed that he was too little. I want even more fear and negative emotions. Jai saw the whipping of his double, but did not realize that the situation could worsen so much. And so he became between the monster and the girl and began to shout that he could not kill innocent people, explaining that he called him so that he had dealt with monsters. The double did not consider it necessary to explain anything, and therefore removed the guy from his path with one powerful movement. The monster shouted that the young man is his servant, and he was his master, who arose due to longing in the soul of a man. For this reason he would do what he would consider necessary. A moment later, he began to say that Jai got rid of his kindness, and for the sake of awakening anger in him, he hit him so much that the young man flew away a few meters, and then he stated that a man should gain courage and kill a woman, the only way to achieve the desired results. The young man tried to back. All this time he muttered under his breath, which could not do in such a way that there is another solution. However, the monster was restless and already pushing, began to order the victim to destroy. Jai tried to run away, although he understood that he would hardly succeed. The double knew that he could not persuade this person to persuade, but it may well have stupefied to do what he was supposed to do. Negative energy caught up with a man who stopped and carefully looked back where the unfortunate woman with the baby in her arms stood. The young man saw that a knife was lying on the ground and therefore leaned to raise a cold gun. Approaching the unfortunate, Ji waved a blade, although he did it silently. The girl stood opposite the young man, as if Doug. She could take some actions, but simply could not. Suddenly, the unfortunate began to ask for the ill-wisher to spare her child. At that moment, the light appeared, which testified that Lin Lin, having developed frantic speed, arrived at the destination. Our hero stopped and looked around. He was in no hurry to accept at least some actions. Realizing that this could be dangerous, Jai carefully looked at the young man, but did not know that he should be said. And Lin Lo watched the fact that in the hands of the young man, there was a bloodied knife. And on the ground lay the same figure of a woman. A mask of hatred froze on the guy's face. He ordered his double to immediately deal with this monster. The double was not going to spend time talking, and therefore, jumping out of his seat, immediately headed towards the monster. The enemy put up his hand to defend himself, noting aloud that he did not think that he would have to meet with a person with such a strong energy. These were the most lively emotions, as if Lin Lin himself had more than once plunged into despair. Although the next minute the monster looked at the Dark Emperor and, waving, shouted to get out of his road, the monster began to threaten, saying that if the double does not do what he was ordered, then the monster will reach the master, that is, to our hero. Linu went through a lot, and therefore he stood and simply watched everything that happened there. At this moment, the enemy struck, wanting to destroy the young man as quickly as possible. But the opponent's fist touched the protective umbrella of our heroes. Kaguya defended himself and his master, who, as before, was silent, thinking about what he would do in the future. The girl managed to change the position of the protective instrument in such a way as to successfully reflect the blows. Our hero with horror noted to himself that this monster runs so fast that if not for the double, he would not have time to react. The young man realized that he could not do without a Dark Emperor, and therefore called his assistant. The warrior did not have to hear the owner of the owner. He immediately attacked the monster and began to beat him. For some minute, the monster was disabled. And then, smiling, he happily noted that the Dark Emperor would not be able to overcome him because he was weaker. Accelerating, the monster shouted that the double would not greet, and therefore he could prepare for his death. Suddenly, the soldiers came together in the battle. Everyone did everything that depends on him, but there was no obvious leader. Lin Luo understood that the Emperor would not last long, and therefore said Kaguya that it was time to use the Night Thunderstorm sword. Accelerating, the girl screamed that she would do everything to protect her master. The monster, seeing the guy's attempts to defeat him, laughed, saying that for him, the young man and his assistants are just ants, which is very easy to cope with. The beast began to rage, shouting that everyone would immediately get out of his path and did not interfere with the end of the begun. His power was so powerful that even Kaguya flew back. Thrown back with an energy wave, the young man ran to his assistant and supported her from behind, seeing that the girl was very painful because she turned her leg during the fall. At this time, the monster noted that the doll is best to become an operation because he is going to deal with it. The Dark Emperor was not going to expose his associates under the blow, and therefore he himself strove to recapture the attack. Realizing that it should be acted with lightning speed, Lin Lin used his last trump card, which was a green demon. The monster, realizing that Green Liana was constrained by his actions, began to scream incomprehensibly and ask what was happening. The ill-wisher wanted to strike, but instead his hand was captured by a green demon. Already after a moment tied hand and foot, the enemy shouted and tried to escape with all his might. While the monster said that for some reason his body was covered with demonic energy, Kaguya grabbed her sword and headed towards the enemy. Having destroyed the illusion, our hero finally asked how he believes whether he copes well with his near battle. The monster did not answer this question, although it stated that this could not just disappear, because it is the main fear of all people. In the meantime, negative emotions live in the hearts of people, including fear and despair. He will live forever. Putting his hands in his pockets, the guy calmly stated that when they would meet another time, this monster would bow his head to his feet. Linu noted that Kaguya inflicted serious damage to the enemy, thanks to the unification of her strength with the abilities of the Dark Emperor. And if so, then the demon is doomed to death. After a moment, the attention of our hero was attracted by the voice that came from the side. It was Jai, who, crawling near the deceased girl, cried and lamented what he did, and how now it was possible to fix it all. Looking at his own hands, the young man could not realize how he could get to just taking and kill an innocent person. Approaching the man, Lin Lu began to say that he was before his death, and suddenly fell silent. And then, having seriously looked at the guy, he continued his phrase, saying that Ji could say his last words. The young man carefully looked at our hero, noting that he did not want everything to happen. It was an accident. Having fallen to the floor, the young man explained that at the moment when he reached for a knife, he did not control himself in his mind. Negative energy was completely controlled by him. Having taken his blade, Linu said that for the murder it was necessary to pay. In addition to this, Jie should understand that until he is alive, his double will return again and again. The young man, who continued to lie on the ground, confirmed the fact that he must pay for his deed. The man asked to protect his daughter and tell her that his father had left. But when she grows up, he would definitely return to find her. Our hero pressed him as hard as the enemy and hit him with his blade. And then he quietly stated that he would not worry, because the young man would take care of the baby and make her need nothing. With tears in Sei's eyes, he sincerely thanked the guy for making a promise. Looking at the deceased man, Linlo heard the system notified him that he activated his talent for level S, and therefore could choose several types of inventory. Our hero remembered the monster's words that it was necessary to apply 3 double strokes at the same time, which means that the ability should be not lower than the SS level. The young man understood that, judging by all the facts, it seems that the devilish double could retreat and manipulate its master, and therefore you might think about the strength of the soul. Our hero decided that this would be the best solution, and therefore after a few minutes began to activate a new ability. The guy understood that even Hu Jin Min could not tame this double. Then he is unlikely to be able to. The thoughts of the young man were interrupted by a computer that declared that the hero received the ability of the SS level, which is called an emotional detonator. It was a great ability, but the nuance was that in one moment it could not last more than 5 seconds, and the reload time is 2 hours. But the young man realized that this ability is not so simple. It is somewhat similar to a rainy night. It could increase the level of endurance of the double. Suddenly, Lin screamed loudly so that his personal assistant awakened. At that very moment, powerful energy began to spin around the young man, sweeping away everything in its path. A small egg appeared in the center of this funnel, shining with gold light. However, our hero was not happy with such an innovation. He expected that a demon would rise in front of him, and not some incomprehensible object. Looking at the egg, the guy asked himself out loud about what the hell was. Why this time everything went not according to plan. The system notified that the double did not have an inventory, which prompted the young man to think that perhaps this assistant does not have a certain ability and shape. Closing his eyes, Linu decided for himself that, most likely, many nuances directly depend on the owner. And after a moment, the young man decided that he needed to try the effect of emotions in order to understand what he was dealing with. Suddenly, thoughts began to appear in his voice, but only these were the thoughts of other people. Each of them thought about something of his own, about something not like. Hearing that the system informed the completion of time, our hero sharply opened his eyes. The young man was glad that this ability is only 5 seconds, realizing that with such a large stream of information, only players with high mental force can withstand this. And again, the young man thought about the whole city was shrouded in fog. Only insects roamed the streets. A sense of fear was crawling from all the cracks. It seems that Jai chose fear as a nutrient for this square. But then an uncontrollable double of the devil will be born. Lin Luo did not understand what to do next with this egg, and therefore decided to postpone it and ask the Lord of Prayers to show him where the daughter of the deceased man is. Hugging Mishka, the girl left alone at home, asked aloud what her father was, and why he still has not returned. Suddenly, the baby heard someone knocked on the door. Her eyes immediately twisted with fear and the anticipation of something. It was our hero who, addressing Hu Xinyue, said that he was her dad's friend, and therefore asked to let him into the apartment. The girl opened the door and saw a young man in front of her, who stood silently and smiled slightly. In turn, for some time, and the child stood not understanding what to say. Sitting in a cafe, Hu Xinyue asked our hero when her dad returned, and why he left her. The young man stated that the man would return, but later he had to leave to protect Hangzhou, and therefore he asked Lin Lu to postpone his daughter. Opening her eyes widely, the baby was delighted to be heard. She said that it was fine, and confirms the fact that her dad is a very strong person. Suddenly, the guy asked Jinyue about whether she was thinking that he was deceiving her. The girl admitted that her ability is to feel emotions, and she feels that only real kindness lives in the young man. That is why the baby completely trusts the young man, since he is a good friend of her father. Returning Hu Xinyue home, our hero thought that in this situation it is difficult to find the guilty. However, when the fog is scattered, he will certainly find a new house for this child. Moving along the street, the guy continued to think that there were many people like Ji who could not control himself in the chaos era, and this means that all human values have sharply lost their meaning. but Lin Luan still wants to help the whole world. The young man firmly decided that he would become the king of all China and would create a happy future. Anyone who will stand in his way will turn into ashes under his feet. At this time, a group of people who noted that the fear of the devil reappeared to the Lin Yin temple. Lai Yu answered, judging by the memoirs from the past. It was, as soon as they get rid of them, all the horror in Hangzhou will stop. The monk, interfering in the conversation, noted that before continuing, it is best to choose a captain. One of the young people said, it seems to him that Li Tianxi wants to become the leader, hearing how he explains that he can take responsibility. And then he added, looking at his friend, although they are the best group, you need to understand that the Dark Emperor has serious abilities, and he is not weaker than them. At the moment, Barking Yu has not yet restored all the memories from a past life. And, besides this, it is physically weak, and therefore it is better to pour quarrels into the background. But the monk said that the young man was too high about the Dark Emperor, although in his past life he did not hear about him, although they have the ability of the SSS level. And, hugging a man, he added, if he is afraid of this player, he can help him deal with him, but in return, he wants to become a captain. Lai Yu noted that the Dark Emperor took his skills. He will return them sooner or later, with someone's help or on his own. Liu Tianxia thought that he could not allow his comrade in arms to restore his strength. Otherwise, he would completely seize power. Then there will be no chance of rain. The businessman turned to the eagle and asked if there was anyone nearby, and in response, he received a promise that he would check everything. Having concentrated, the young man connected his abilities to check what was happening. Suddenly, he said that within 1,000 meters from them, the strongest creature nearby, this is a giant mantis of the 7th level. Lai Yu said with concern that it seems that the catastrophe is ahead of the primary schedule. As a result of the place where the devil reappeared, it has shifted, and it is no longer the same as before. Somewhere else, something indescribable took place. A huge monster seized a multi-story building. Lin Luo strove for the building, realizing that he was in front of him a monster of level 34. But his health is 10 times more than that of a monster of the 35 levels and captain of monsters. Its abilities are intended to call their relatives, which is simply a ruthless tactic of insect monsters. Therefore, it will not be so easy to deal with this adversary. Although on the other hand, this monster is not so scary, except for its size and the ability of the call. The Dark Emperor should cope with this challenge. Calling his assistants, the young man said that they received a new ability, a system of improvement. And if so, then our hero is counting on Kagui and the Dark Emperor. The associates, heading towards the monster, shouted that a young man could count on them. Suddenly, the system notified that the surface of the body of the devilry is covered with the power of another measurement, and therefore the ability of the double is invalid. Looking at the enemy with horror, the guy said out loud that he was caught an incredibly powerful monster. The young man did not have time to say something or do, because he heard a wild scream that was heard throughout the district. Turning around, Lin Luo did not understand what he hears more. A variety of beetles flown from afar. There were so many of them that it was impossible to even say about how many individuals a flock consist of. The guy looked at the approach of these monsters but did not immediately understand how to cope with them. Despite the fact that these monsters have a very low level of development, if they attack articles, our hero was not sure that he could fight back. But there is one advantage. It consisted in the fact that the beetles had many experience points, which means that they all could cross Lin Luo. A moment later, the young man decided, he said to himself, the stronger the storm, the more expensive the fish, and then called the Dark Emperor and the girl. Kaguya immediately grabbed the sword and began to deal with these terrible creatures. The Dark Emperor gladly reported that he also manages to cope with the task. And again, the guy ordered that young people use swords like fast wind. At this moment, a helicopter flew over the city, in which reporters illuminated the events of recent days, noting that spectators could see a white fog on a global scale. Yao Mu said that the government does not comment on the current situation, and therefore she and her colleague will transfer everything that is happening. Suddenly, the girls screamed that they in the distance noticed a huge monster, which they were going to watch. But most of all, journalists were not struck by this. But the fact that there was some person on the back of the beast, the correspondent noted that this is impossible, despite the fact that they entered the era of the heroes, the level of awakening low, and therefore it is not clear who could take a fight with the monster. The second journalist ordered the pilots to fly as close as possible, because he wants to closely remove this daredevil. Standing in the middle of the fog, our heroes were silent, evaluating the situation. Lin Luo thought to himself that there are too many Zhukov, and the Kaguya and the Dark Emperor consumed too much energy. Raising his hand up, the young man screamed so that the guys continued the battle, but only after they replenished their strength. And at this stage, the main thing, not to let beetles close to themselves. The doubles, depending on the sides, noted that they would wait for further orders. Our hero understood that he has fragments of crystals to make up for energy, but they cannot be used, because for swords of fast wind this will still be few. Seeing a notification of the system that the guy managed to reach the 24th level, he was delighted. A panel of abilities appeared in front of a young man where he decided to choose flexibility. And then the young man decided to give preference to the ability of 10,000 swords. And again, the computer notified Linu how many advantages this blade has, thanks to which even the impossible can make. Our hero pleased that this ability allows not only to reduce the level of energy consumption, but every second creates even more knives. Holding his sword in his hands, the young man said that the time had come once and for all to deal with this monster. A moment later, Lin turned to his associates, noting that the guys should start an attack on his team. The guy understood that it was impossible to bag, and therefore, together with the team, went to the battle. The fearless team jumped onto the beetle, and our hero shouted that they would do everything to kill the king of insects. The monster growled, showing with all its appearance that it was the main thing in this world, and therefore no one is terrible for him. But Lin Lo was indifferent. He gathered his team and probably knew that he had the goal, and was ready to achieve it by any means. The guys shouted loudly that the monster would die because they were much stronger. Having concentrated, the young man called the power of the swords of the big wind, realizing that this was his opportunity to cope with the ill wisher. And after a moment, he called on the Dark Emperor and Kaguya, stating that their time had come. The guys should give up to the full. Lin shouted that the Lord of Prayers fulfill one desire. It is that no beetle should come closer than 1 meter. The guy said that the Crystal of Cruelty of level A could increase the ability of a double by 30%, and then caused a green demon. Lin Lu was supported by Liana, who could deliver him to the place in which he needed. Thanks to the mysterious desire, the spiders could not get closer to the guy that they were very angry. The doubles understood that they could not hesitate, and therefore fought with monsters as never before. Although after a moment the young man drew attention to the beetle flying by, not understanding how this is possible and why the spell no longer acts. Our hero could not come closer to the monster because insects were waiting for him there. The young man shouted that the king of insects again began to scream, urging the new army, and therefore his doubles should fight even more actively. Fighting away from the monsters was getting harder. They flew over a flock over a guy who ran away somewhere. Correspondents saw what happened, but they did not have any weapon to help the fighting people, which was very depressing. The girl, crying, wanted good luck to the guy. She said that she would show his feat to the whole world, since China should know its heroes. Representatives of the media wanted everyone to see on the air how a group of people alone to fight the monsters. At some point, our hero crouched and noted that it seems to him that there was no strength left, realizing that he could no longer fight in such a rhythm. The Lord of the Prayers standing nearby noted that he would quickly restore the forces of the young man, and therefore he should not worry about this. Our hero apologized to Lao Ji for bothering him, hearing in response that there is nothing unusual in this. Having rested a little, the young man jumped on the king of the monsters with renewed vigor, screaming that the time came to see which of them could hold out longer. He growled as hard as he could, and Lin decided to use the help of a green demon again. When the enemy tried to damage our hero, he again hung on the vines and soared into the air so that the ill-wisher could not reach him. At that moment, Lin shouted to activate the strength of 1,000 swords. Directing the energy of destruction, the guy screamed again so that the monster lagged behind humanity and died with his beetles. The young man lowered the axe and hung on the vines, waiting for something. The correspondents who watched all the events from the helicopter looked at this picture with horror, worried about our hero. The young man, gathering his strength, shouted as loudly as never before, realizing that he needed to finish off the enemy. And again, bringing his sword, the guy began to chop the king of Zhukov, hoping that he would now win. After a moment, all the audience heard a strong roar. It was the fall of the monster. Jumping from one part of the body, the young man jumped to another. He understood that the wounded king could restore strength and attack again, and therefore it was necessary to destroy him once and for all. At this moment, the system informed everyone that for the first time in the history of the player, under the nickname the Dark Emperor, managed to deal with the king of Zhukov and get a reward. Yao Mu cried, saying that she could not even imagine that this hero would be so young. but at the same time a strong player who made many feats. The girl leaned out of the helicopter in order to better see this person and enjoy the fact that they live in the same city. Lin Lu smiled. He was pleased that they learned about his feat, but at the same time he was in no hurry to say something or to do something. And the journalist was thinking about the fact that our hero is nice. She hoped that someday she would have a chance to personally interview this incredible guy. Looking at the crystals, the young man thought that he could get the benefits as much as possible from them, only if he would use high-quality equipment. So far he decided to leave these items. Sitting in silence, the young man thought that it seems that this is true, that as soon as the king of insects dies, his whole army disappears. Despite this, the fog in Hangzhou will not dissipate for a long time. The Dark Emperor was worried that the young man was photographed, but he did not bother him. He knew if they learned about his existence, this would help to free his brother in the future. Lin was worried that after the battle there were almost no crystals fragments left. There should be a map of the Holy Land already updated, but he needs to quickly add something. Then it will be necessary to look for another dungeon to increase combat power, and aloud asked the Lord of Prayers to take them to the square of Vulin. The double stopped the car, opened the door, and asked his master to go inside. A small company of young people stood in a small room and actively discussed something. An embarrassed girl, lying on the bed, asked the guys, "Did they not say that they were shooting a series?" The young man smiled maliciously and talked about the fact that the teacher was an actress before, and therefore glad of the opportunity to work with the beauty and see everything she is capable of. And then he noted why not to collaborate with the teacher of the pit on sea and show herself from the best side. The girl began to scream when they saw that the guys began to grab her by the top of the dress. The unfortunate one lay on the floor. Hearing someone said that she was perhaps an actress, but at the same time not the best. At this time, a girl with wings appeared in front of the men. She smiled, but was silent. One of the young people carefully looked at the young lady, although he was in no hurry to say or do anything. Our heroes left the car in the middle of the street and then walked in an unknown direction. Standing in front of a closed door, Lin Law thought that Ji Van Ying was a woman, and therefore, as she could be at an abandoned factory, the young man did not make any efforts to open the chain because she broke herself. The young man did not dare to open the door on his own, and therefore asked about this service of the Dark Emperor, who immediately agreed. The door was massive, and therefore the double slowly opened massive doors. All the audience drew attention to the corpses lying on the floor, but there were no traces of violence, and therefore the guy did not understand what could happen. Also in a closed room, Lin Luo asked the Lord of Prayers to fulfill a rather strange desire. It is that no one could harm our hero for the next 30 seconds. Suddenly, a bright flash of light appeared, which lit up the entire room. The guy's doubles drew attention to the fact that he closes his eyes and falls, and therefore began to actively call him. The young man lay in the arms of a frightened Kagi, who did not understand anything and only asked questions to his master, hoping that he would come to his senses. After a moment, the girl drew attention to the female silhouette, which appeared ahead. The stranger laughed. The Lord of Prayers, realizing that something was wrong with, ordered the Dark Emperor to take care of the young man. Starting the movement, the young man told Kagi that they are obliged to find out what was happening. And most importantly, who is behind all this? Lin Luo opened his eyes and breathing deeply, the understanding that nothing terrible happened to him. Sitting on the bed and looking around, the guy asked in amazement in himself, was he really in the wedding hall? Looking at the wedding photo, the guy again said aloud how this could have turned out that he and Yuji are already married. The young man did not have time to think about something else, as the next minute someone turned to him by name. The young man looked around and saw two beauties in front of him, and one girl was more attractive than the second. Lin Lo, who at that time decided to swallow a little water to recover, almost choked, spitting out everything that he managed to get into his mouth. Confused, the guy hardly asked why these beauties were in the same room with him, and to himself thought why they were so defiantly dressed. The beauties clung to the young man and began to reassure him. And in between, they noted that a pleasant pastime would cost only $1,000 per night. At that moment, the stranger tried to run away from Kagi and screamed, the one that she would see how she could catch her. The opponent thought how good that this territory in the pink mirage was subject only to her. Otherwise, she could die from the blade of this girl for a long time. The girl picked up our double, saying that the distance between her and her master reached the limit, and therefore she stands still. Kaguya asked Vladika how it happened that the guy made a desire, but still lost consciousness. Hearing the answer that everything was fine with desire, it was fulfilled. The ill-wisher intervened in the conversation, saying that no one attacked the young man, she just helped him a little, and therefore, Lin Len rests in the paradise of the world. And, having stood a short pause, she added that it will be so until it perishes. Hearing that the Lord of Prayers thanks the witch for the explanations, she angrily in her voice asked what he was talking about. A moment later, the young man had already focused on his book and turned to it. And then he said that now his master would come out of the state of fainting. Looking at one of the beauties, the young man asked that, did his dream really turn so fast, although the girl did not understand what he was talking about? And, smiling, he explained himself that, unfortunately, Miss Wen would not show such an initiative, in any case, in the very near future. The young man once again looked at the images of girls who were now reflected, as in the mirror, and one that strove about to crack into small parts. Holding on his head, our hero gradually came to his senses, while hearing about how his associates asked him to wake up. Throwing to the guy's neck, Kaguya said how well that the Lord of Prayers returned Lin Lin from the pink mirage, thereby saving his life. A girl with horns said that this was impossible, although she later asked how the young man succeeded. The guy was not going to bother the stranger with answers. Instead, he asked if the girl was a double, and whether she created all this illusion. The Dark Emperor, unlike everyone else, was not going to figure out who was right and who was not. He simply said that the one who caused harm to the master to pay for it. The double, feeling the enemy's hand touched her leg, began to scream and be indignant, but Linu did not care. He thought that even if his desire was fulfilled, this girl would still deceive him without any hesitation. At that moment, another girl appeared in the room, who was an illusion in the hall that only our hero was supposed to see. The guy stood and looked at her, while she demanded that the Dark Emperor immediately let her go. Surprised eyes looked at Linlaw, explaining that she was not going to harm the young man. Suddenly, the young man dawned on the young man. He asked whether it was true that the girl's name was Ji Van In, and, pointing to the dead, asked that she killed them. The unfortunate began to cry, explaining that she was forced to come to the factory. The guys wanted to make a film, but in the end they simply mocked her in the most dirty way. The beauty asked her to be spared, noting that now she could become a truly girl. Our hero screamed, saying that this lady continues to use her natural forces on him. Linlo was not going to be deceived, and therefore called Kaguya, who killed the deceiver. Turning around, the girl asked why her ability as the fatal attraction did not work. Turning to his associates, the young man explained that all the dead deserved it, but the girl was going to kill him in the most dishonest way, and therefore paid for it. Our hero asked the system to take the skill of the murdered, and he himself said that he wanted to imagine his new double, whom he would call the Ghostly Queen. The naive girl smiled at the young man and greeted him coquettishly. With surprise examining the assistant, the guy asked why she was so different from his previous embodiment. The double with innocence honestly said that it seems that Linu is a little upset, that he had not received what was before. Stepping closer and changing the expression, the Ghostly Queen asked, perhaps the young man wants her to be in the image of a slave. Hearing a negative answer, the beauty realized that she had forced the owner to be embarrassed, and therefore she closed her mouth with her hand and laughed. Returning to the previous look, the double said that the guy is so cute when he was shy, and then the system showed a scoreboard that indicated all the information on the account of the illusion into which this girl can immerse. The guy knew that this double is not a combat type, but its energy storage has real value, and skills require restoration time, which shows that it has a strong ability to control. Raising his hands and heading for the exit, Lin Luke happily stated that in general the day was good. Although he immediately stated that it was too early to relax, he remembers that at the same time that Ji Van In was another double, whose name was Liu Jianin. Moving along the street, the unknown asked himself that this is for the ability. If to activate it must be wounded and dangerous. The guy complained that in the real world, if you received an injury it was necessary to be treated, and was also glad that you robbed a pharmacy, otherwise it would not have been. Entering the room, some pretty girl turned to the blonde. Looking at Miss Hong, the young man asked what she was doing at his place. The beauty with a flirty voice explained that she had returned. The young man asked why she did this because they parted. And on the initiative of the girl, this happened when she got into the institution. But he did not. The young man began to swear at his ex-friend, noting that she came only because he managed to arouse in himself the ability of the SS level. The beauty did not deny or confirm anything. She just rushed into the hands of the guy. Looking into the eyes of a young man, the stranger turned to Khan and asked if he could forget everything bad that there was and forgive her between them. The girl played the role of a seducer and therefore said, if the young man wants, she could even punish her. Taking a red-haired beauty by the shoulders, The guy with excitement said that he hates her, although a desire was red in his eyes. Lying on the bed, the girl continued to declare that she did very poorly, and therefore she should be punished. Turning to the double, Lin praised her for a beautiful pink mirage into which this man fell so easily that he did not even notice anything. After that, our hero looked at Kagi and noted that she must do what she knows. The girl took out her sword and lifted it over her head, but at the same time carefully looked at her victim. The double already lowered the blade, but something unimaginable happened. Firstly, a blue glow appeared around the guy, and secondly, he easily intercepted her weapons. Kaguya tried to take her sword with all her might, but she did not succeed, and therefore she asked the owner what to do. Luke watched everything that was happening and asked the same way as if it was going on. Suddenly, some creature appeared that stated that it is a destroyer of a real cold, and anyone who doubts his power will be punished. The young man was confused, but tried to do something, and therefore asked for help from Kagu and the Dark Emperor. The faithful assistants immediately rushed to the enemy, trying to inflict damage to him. The enemy was not idle, and therefore put the protection in the form of a frosty dome, which was overcome. The double did not think to put up with this, and therefore cried out that no one and nothing could stop him. Then the ill-wisher began to call for the help of ice chains, realizing that they could keep even the strongest warrior. And this worked, because the next moment the Dark Emperor began to complain that he could not move. Going to defeat the enemy, Linu said that he was moving so quickly that our hero could not even grab him. However, Kagui was not scared. The girl, grabbing her sword, tried to at least injure the opponent. The young man liked it. He stated that the double reacts with lightning speed. This ability is simply amazing. Understanding that the situation was stabilized, the young man turned to the Dark Emperor and the Green Demon and said that they would return. Crossing his hands, the Lord of the Cold, smiling, asked if the young man was not afraid to attack him. Our hero was ironic, and therefore asked a counter question regarding whether he was afraid of whether he did not confuse anything. Hearing that the guy further say all sorts of funny things, the opponent said how some boy could mock him. Linu said that now the creature plans to protect his master and not react to stimuli, although he is trying to deceive the young man in every way to drive into a trap. The Lord of the Cold noted that he did not think that the young man was so insightful. To himself, Linu Lu thought that he had a level not lower than S, and his double only S, and therefore it would be stupid to join the battle, although there is one, but raising his hand, our hero shouted that he would combine the abilities of his assistants, and therefore shouted loudly so that the Dark Emperor and Kage merged together. The guys stood nearby. At that moment, all the audience paid attention to the light from their energies. Only a few seconds have passed, and the blue and pink flows have already merged into a single whole. The guy saw a silhouette in front of him, from which powerful energy emanated. And then the computer informed that now 2 assistants merged in one, as a result of which a warrior with a rank S, double plus with increased endurance turned out. An additional advantage was also possessed by the sword, which received a double. Every time the blade shakes the opponent, he will leave 30% of energy. The young man said that 350 dexterity points. Each attack can apply 250 physical damage points, but in combination with the armor of the Dark Emperor, the lack of Kegi, fragility is compensated. While the frosty creature shouted that it was the true king of murders, the symbiosis of the assistants into which they turned did his job. The opponent understood that now it would be much more difficult for him to fight, and therefore decided to build an ice ring. For a moment, this defense chopped the movement of the warrior, forcing to suspend the duel. The ill-wisher for everything thought that the speed of the girl is stunning, although there was nothing wrong with that, because the snow wall would block movements. Shouting, the Lord of the Cold said that all those present immediately plunged into the ice coffin. Before the warrior of our hero, a huge block of ice arose, which actually resembled a cold sarcophagus. The advanced Kagi managed to bounce just at the moment when the 2 parts with a roar closed among themselves. Approaching the enemy, the girl screamed, "Is it all that he was capable of?" The Lord of the Ice looked at his rival in amazement, understanding how she managed to get out of the trap. The angry girl warrior noted that now her turn has come to show what she was capable of. The creature shouted and indignant displeasedly. It said that it would not allow the double to surpass him, and therefore also attracted icy rain. Hearing how the rival says about what to go through, the warrior said that it was not scary for her. Everything would seem just like snow, and, withstanding a short pause, she added that her sword is much more dangerous and ruthless. The opponent shouted so that ice armor, ice ring, and icy rain were activated. And then he stated that he still has body protection, Therefore, he could use cold air to reduce the strength and speed of attack. Therefore, Kaguya is doomed to failure. The warrior decided to use her trump card, and therefore took advantage of the force of liberation, which allows to increase dexterity by 50 points. Hearing how the system reported activation, the girl said that now the night rain would begin. Realizing that he was falling apart, the Lord of the Cold shouted that this could not be. At the same time, Kaguya, seeing that there was practically nothing left of the enemy, said that she would defend the honor of her master until the last. Otherwise, she was not Princess Kagui. And again, being in the blonde bedroom, the beauty raised her sword and screamed that now she needed to move only forward. A few minutes later, the girl reported to Lin Lin about the successful completion of the assignment. Hearing how the Dark Emperor replied that this was his merit. Laughing, the young man said that the guys were best relaxed a little. He would do everything else himself. Standing by the blonde bed, our hero saw a notification from the system offering him to activate the effect of abilities. Through a moment, the guy said that he feels everything and suggested that he was awakened by the ability of level S. Realizing that combat skills became much better, smiling, the guy decided that it was best to check it in practice. And again, the system notified that it is best to use a personal mask in which you can count on a saint of the patron saint. Having a gaze, Lin Law told himself that the personal mask is really activated only when he is in danger. Grabbing his head, the young man yelled and noted, "Is this at all possible?" He did not believe it, and therefore said that God the Patron would immediately appear before him. Our hero stood in front while his assistants from behind. He said that the guys would be careful, although nothing happened. Having fallen to his knees, the guy began to lament, noting that, finally, he got the doubles of the SS level, but for some reason they cannot be used together. At this time, the Lord of Prayer suggested that perhaps this is just some restriction on the use of assistants. And the young man dawned on the young man. Turning to Kagi, the young man asked him to hit him on the neck, and as strong as possible. The girl was horrified, but Lin Luo explained that the assistant would show up. He should be in mortal danger, therefore, it is necessary to check whether the double will appear or not. Stepping closer to the owner, the blonde said, "If this is an experiment that cannot be dispensed with, then she will do whatever they say." Our hero bent his head and concentrated, realizing that his warrior was beating heavily, and therefore could be painful. Suddenly, the assistant swung and hit the guy as much as she could. Raising his head, Linu looked in surprise and bewilderment at Kagi and asked why nothing happened. The Lord of Prayers put forward his version that the double did not feel that the owner was in danger, and therefore did not appear. Besides this, the girl did not have evil in the energy of evil, which was also felt. The young man thought for a moment, realizing that he should come up with a reasonable decision. Smiling, the young man turned to the Dark Emperor, saying that he attacked him, beat as much as he wanted, and did not restrain himself. Unlike the girl, this double did not think to regret the master, and therefore, grabbing him, immediately began to wave his fist. Lin Law was not scary. He understood that the final result should justify himself. Through a moment, the guy looked around. He noted to himself that for some reason time stopped. Some voices sounded, but as if in his head or it were voices outside of time. The voice noted that there is no willpower in the heart to resist. One person wants to go a dozen paths. Righteousness is not worth a penny. From today, everything is for the first and last time. Finally, our hero saw a silhouette, continuing to note that Lin Lin needs to hide justice, ambition, and desire, and with his name on the lips to destroy the world. Seeing the laughing grimace, the young man screamed with all his might to follow the call and leave. Suddenly, an unknown man in a mask appeared in front of the guy who was silent. Our hero understood that at that moment he looked so insignificant against the background of this huge man. A bright flash of light lit up the entire room, so that under the blow was a Dark Emperor. Realizing that the owner is in danger, the new double shouted, "Only one word, and he will quickly deal with the creature that dared to threaten the master." The Dark Emperor looked at the stranger and stated in tone that he could attack. He himself would be interested in which of them would be the first to go to hell. Realizing that the situation was aggravated to the limit, the young man screamed so that everyone would stop immediately. Lin Luo did not understand how much doubles could make some decisions without his permission. The assistants immediately retreated and began to note that they would do everything only as they were ordered. Looking at a new double, our hero happily noted to himself how good that he had someone with the SS level. An additional advantage is that the patron is not so angry. As befits a level of SS level, its indicators on the information panel are much larger than all current assistants. The guy rejoiced because the patron, except for military skills, could still sleep life, which means that he is stronger than an icy destroyer. A moment later, the double explained that the patron of 23% means that he can use only such an amount of his own forces to protect. Interfering in the conversation, the ghostly queen asked if it was true that if Lin Lin would threaten a serious danger, he would give up only on the fifth of her capabilities. Folding his hands on his chest, the man said that he would have a sorry to spend 1% of energy. And then the skirmish began between the Dark Emperor and the patron, who found out whose skills are more useful and better. The young man, closing his head with his hand, asked the men to stop, saying that he had a headache from them. The ghostly queen tried to oppose something to this, but the young man stopped her. The girl immediately rushed to Kagi and began to complain about Lin Law, saying that he dared to hit her. Our hero did not answer. He looked with horror at the chaos that was going on around him, not understanding how to cope with all this. Turning to the Lord of Prayers, the guy with despair stated that there are too many doubles in his team, and therefore it is very difficult to lead them. Now every assistant had high intelligence and has his own individuality. But what will happen if he again has lost consciousness for a while? Linu turned to all the gathered and said if he temporarily loses consciousness, they are all obliged to fulfill the orders of the Lord of the Prayers. Embarrassed, he turned to the young man and asked if he was serious. Girls in the Dark Emperor immediately stated that they would do as they were ordered. At the same time, the patron did not understand why everything was so unfair. The young man understood this, and therefore made promises from a new assistant who reluctantly but agreed with the proposal of the owner. Removing, the new double said that everything was clear to him, so he would be better to return the first when help would really be needed. The Lord of Prayers bowed to our hero and stated that for him this is a large part, and therefore he will do everything in his power. The guy understood this, and therefore stood silently and just looked at him. The travelers walked along the road, and one of them, despite the fact that together they work only a couple of days, already asked for a translation. The monk shouted that they initially agreed that Lao Yu would receive 40% of the profit, he was 30%, and the rest of the guys are 10% each. But one of the young people noted that Liu Tianshi used to be strong, but now they grew up, and therefore they can rely on their own forces. The captain was dissatisfied, asking a rhetorical question regarding whether the guy wanted to arrange a rebellion. Suddenly shouted Lao Yu, who ordered everyone to shut up immediately. The displeased guy noted that there are no complaints about the man, just the words of the monk are, as always, are unpleasant and arrogant. However, he was unchanged and stated that from today, except for common affairs, everyone would act independently. Each time after the conquest of some secret kingdom, one should discuss the method of distribution of income among themselves. Young people asked if it was true that a man wants them to independently distribute resources. Lao Yu noted that he would choose 2 dungeons, Kitaru 2, 1 more on other participants, and the remaining 4 will be distributed among everyone. And he added, even if the guys pass the same secret zone, they will not be allowed to fight to death. And, turning to the monk, he noted that if he conquers the dungeon on his own, he will not take anything from him. But if you want to get a guide, he will have to give 10% of his income. While Liu Tianxi noted that he agreed, Katair thought that there was no point in anger of the elders. Otherwise, he would create a bunch of problems for himself, and Lao Yu would take all the power to himself. Therefore, the young man decided that at this stage this is a wonderful solution that would suit everyone. Going somewhere forward, the monk said that it was necessary to go. Everything would be ready for their next meeting. Katira, turning around, noted that they will go first, so everyone should be careful. When everyone left, Lao Yu said aloud that, which of these people can be a dragon or phoenix? Would they agree to live under an alien beginning? Hearing the praise from the girl, the young man noted that now they should find his senior teammates in the hope that they remember the rules of the game. Lin Luo said that despite the fact that the fog had almost dissipated, some entities could slip through the portal in order to later deliver a number of problems. And after a minute, the guy thought about the fact that somewhere nearby there was a dungeon in which you could restore the spent forces. The young man wanted to say something, but suddenly he thought about the Crying Grave. This was one of the dungeons, but in previous lives, most of these rare worlds rich in energy were captured by strong players, because it was never in them. But now, even if the young man is faced with an unexpected situation, he will definitely be able to solve her with his strength. Fearlessly, moving forward, the guy shouted to his doubles so that they would not lag behind and follow him. After a moment, the leg of our hero has already stepped on a slippery surface. The guys walked along a small crevice, and huge rocks towered around. Suddenly, the ghostly queen rushed at Lin Lo. She began to complain that it was very cold in this place. The young man looked at everyone else and specified how they feel. Almost all participants said that they were either not afraid of the cold, or their clothes were so warm that the wind did not let. Understanding that Kaguya was a little shy, the guy said that he had prepared a girl's clothes in advance, which the beauties could leave for himself. Having dressed in those costumes that were prepared for them, the assistants unanimously began to thank the master for such generosity and care. The Lord of Prayers, looking around, noted that he did not see any signs of battle, as if the boss simply evaporated in the air. But after a few minutes, the girls screamed that they heard some kind of extraneous sound, as if someone was approaching them. And if others were not enough for such a turn of events, then Lin Law was waiting for his opponent, and therefore stated that the battle should begin as soon as possible. Seeing a whole army in front of him, our hero asked the Dark Emperor to stop these people. And so far, he is engaged in an increase in the strength of their company. The assistant understood that the battle would be one of the most difficult, and therefore began to do what he was ordered. Then the young man turned to the Lord of Prayers and asked him to fulfill his desire. The young man did not voice him. Instead, he simply squeezed one small crystal in his hand. Suddenly, in front of our hero appeared the Wheel of Fortune, which he looked carefully. At this moment, Lin Law told the Dark Emperor that now is just the time when it is best to start a fierce attack. In parallel with this, the young man continued to scream the Lord of Prayers so that he would discover something for him. The arrow pointed to the SSS level. It was a crystal of the Ascension of the Spirit, and this meant that the guy could attack, and very successfully. Grasping Lao Chi, the young man shouted that their result in this lottery was just excellent. The number of work of the Lord is beyond praise. The young man was also happy. He thought that otherwise he would be considered guilty again, but they could have expelled from the team. The one Ascension crystal could unite doubles and level S. They say that it is a real miracle. In the market, it costs at least 1 billion coins, but this crystal can give only 70 points of experience in abilities, and still cannot raise robbery to the rank of SS. And therefore it is better to give this jewel to the brother. Thanks to such an inventory, a relative of our hero will be able to activate the double and also increase the level of protection, dexterity, and range of action. The Dark Emperor, preparing for the battle, talked about what he feels how a lot of strength seeps into his body. The warrior accelerated and began to do everything possible to get rid of opponents with just one movement of the hand. Our hero saw that the assistant copes with his duties, because the ill-wishers flew in different directions. The young man out loud said that this is good, but now we need to remember their best strategy, which allowed to get the maximum gain. He said that players will have to help the Second Legion of the Temple, which arrived for investigation, and then it is necessary to explore the Tomb of the Spirits along with the Second Legion of the Temple, and you will also have to meet in the Necromancer of the Witch's cult. Our hero said menacingly that his doubles are obliged to defeat this essence. Lin Lo noted that only in this case the guys receive a reward from the Second Legion of the Temple. It was not difficult, but the young man was not sure that the final reward would be high. However, the guy will have a more dangerous strategy, but even more than a profitable one, because his Dark Emperor will defeat evil energy. A moment later, Lin ordered Kagu to help the Dark Emperor kill all enemies, and then the young man would connect to a common battle. The girl grabbed her sword and stated that she was already going to the aid of her ally. The young man understood that his double was resting now, because there was no more order. But when he saw the horde of new opponents, he said that it was time to start the battle again. At this time, some unknown said that these young people know how to surprise. A man in black noted that in fact he escaped before hatred arrived, without specifying who was in question. However, the girl corrected the man, saying that only one of them is a man, and he, in turn, called on several more heroic souls, and she added that she did not expect a divine fate. At this time, a large number of people armed with spears and swords were in the Canyon of Oblivion. One of the warriors shouted that they should enter the canyon for the glory of the temple, are obliged to eliminate ill-wishers from the witch's cult. The soldiers, having heard this, began to praise the commander of the Second Army, Reinhardt. Suddenly the leader stopped. He saw two unknown figures ahead, not understanding who it could be. Stepping closer, our hero and Kaguya bowed. The young man respectfully said that he had information about the soldiers ahead. Reinhardt carefully looked at the guy. It was amazing for him how much heroic spirit was in this person. Not every adult can do this. The man called Lin an adventurer, and then asked him to tell everything he knew, and in return, he promised to give a reward corresponding to information. The young man admitted that his maid owns all the data. and therefore he wants the girl to tell about everything herself. Kaguya's gaze became cold and indifferent. She was silent. The leader did not understand what was the matter, and then said that the blonde began to talk about everything that she knew. The commander suspected something was amiss, and therefore in the next instant he soared into the air. Getting a sword, the double did the same, who screamed that he had something. The man held his blade in front of him, and he was interested in the guys who they were and why they came to these lands. Lin Luo thought that Reinhardt could not act for more than 3 seconds, and he, in turn, could not understand why some strange power prevented him from moving. A moment later, the system informed that Kaguya, in the appearance of the Dark Emperor, inflicted a crushing blow, and also activated the Wild Blade. The leader, closing his eyes, noted to himself that his strength for an incomprehensible reason ends very quickly, and, most likely, the case was in the opponent's blade. Looking towards the Lord of Prayers, the man decided that this young man secretly controls him with the help of strange spells. The leader understood that the fighting spirit of his soldier went off scale, and decided that our hero could not use his skill for a long time, and therefore Reinhardt should hold out a little more. The military, seeing what was happening, raised their swords and said that it was necessary to go and fight for the captain. The young man realized that the battle would not be easy, and therefore called on the power of thousands of swords of fast wind to help. The captain was struggling with his blade with all his might. Hearing someone nearby speaks about 3 minutes. Kaguya was not going to give slack, and therefore shouted so that the ill-wisher would clean as soon as possible. Suddenly, Reinhardt turned to Lin Luo and stated that since that killer from the witch's cult, he could fight him alone. Unless, of course, he was scared. The guy spread his hands to the side and said that he was ready, and the army representative could attack first. Going to the enemy, the commander did not understand why this young man did not resist and behaves very calmly. The man, raising his weapon, thought that the young man would not think. He would kill him anyway. Seeing how the tip of the blade is already very close, our hero said that it was time to get out of the shadow of the patron. In this very moment, a huge silhouette appeared, which was interested in those who dared to resist his master. Reinhardt stood opposite a stranger and did nothing. The captain in amazement asked how it is possible, unless an ordinary person can conclude a contract with several doubles. The guy did not answer, but simply said that the opponent could not use his strength over the next second. Playing a finger at the ill-wisher, the patron in a calm tone said that he disappeared. Lin Luo was not going to go anywhere. He knew that now his whole assistant would do for him. Around Reinhardt, some strange circles began to gather, which, it seemed, crowded him out of space. The commander was squeezed even more, and he only said that he could not understand what was happening to him. The elder told the girl that he does not understand why an unknown guy fights like on their side, but at the same time he did not notify them about what would come. The man, smiling maliciously, said that everything was adjusted in advance. They can now clear the bones of these heroes with a calm soul, because the ashes of the deceased are very important. The girl stated that he was right, but the leader was dead, so they should entertain their guests. At this time, one of the soldiers turned to the Templars, noting that they were obliged to take revenge on the commander, and therefore should go on the attack. Lin Luo was not going to give up, and therefore connected the robbery technique. When dealing with the soldiers, Kaguya noted that the safety of her owner was under her personal protection. The guy understood that the murder of the soldiers of the camp not only leads to a decrease in experience points, but also does not allow to get income. But this is the only way to get the ashes of the deceased heroes. Our hero ordered the assistant to return. He said that when the clans begin to fight among themselves, they would simply take the treasures and run away. But the guys did not have time to start doing something. How their attention attracted something. An essence appeared from the ground that said that the cult of witches invites them to the tomb of spirits, adding that these imperial dogs were silent. The young man did not understand anything. He did not remember if at least something was written about this operation in the very first guidance that he read. However, the assistants of our hero noted that the young man should not be afraid, because they will cope with any circumstances. Lin Luo did not want to seem ignorant, and therefore asked where he should go. Moving along the gorge, the guy was thinking that he hopes that those treasures that would bring him this dark dungeon will delight him. After some time, the young man saw a group of people, among whom a young woman in white was especially stood out. The guy was thinking that he was going to apply a hidden attack from a close range. Thanks to it, 6 magicians would die in 1 second, and if it destroys them, the dungeon will be able to clean. But Lin Luo knew that first you need to draw up a plan and find out what the dust of the deceased is, as well as where he was hidden. The girl thanked the dear envoy for the help, and asked if she could find out if he brought with her any instructions from the highest ranks. Having clenched, our hero understood that he could not go around, otherwise the whole plan would fail, and therefore decided to try his acting skills. Having cleared his throat, the young man asked how things are with orders in the dungeon. The man explained that after 10 days of rituals, they finally completed the development of a frosty dragon. Understanding that you need to look as plausible as possible, the guy ordered to show him what happened. The brunette did not confuse a similar tone at all, and therefore she asked the messenger to follow her. Only a few minutes passed, and a crowd of people descended along some dark corridor down. Suddenly, the girl stopped and turned around. She joyfully reported that they were already in place. Looking in front of him in surprise, Linu began to say that he sees something incredible. Having a little hesitation, the young man nevertheless stated that he saw with his own eyes a frosty dragon. The guy stood still, unable to move or say something, since his surprise knew no bounds. Our hero thought that when the dragon spirit would come to life, he will certainly become a level 40. This cannot do the usual players. Answering the young man's question about the completion of work on the dragon, the servants replied that for the completion of the cleaning would take about 2 days. The elder noted that they previously worried that the arrival of the second legion would create a problem. But with the arrival of the envoy, they can finally improve their work. Lin Law was silent and reflected on the fact that if the ice dragon was awakened, then he will definitely become a boss. And therefore, having got him, the guy would be Ozol. Suddenly, the young man asked where the ashes of the deceased were, noting that he had spent a lot of effort in battle, and therefore needed to make up. The men honestly admitted that this component is an important element for cleaning the ice dragon, and there is very little left. Standing on the steps, the young man was indignant, saying that he also had a little energy left. And why it doesn't matter? A minute later, one of the servants brought Lin La a box, noting that the remaining dust was in it. Taking advantage of this ash, the guy saw a message from a system that noted that the young man gradually restores his energy. The young man noted that this is really useful, but it is a pity that there was so little left. And this despite the fact that he had not yet received the desired income. And again, residents of the dungeon said that if the guy continues to use the ashes, then the process of cleaning the ice dragon would still be delayed for an indefinite time. The guy said that the men would not worry about this. He will improve this dust as soon as the necessary amount improves, and continue to fulfill the initial task. Two young people alerted such a statement. They began to say something, but they were interrupted. Linu said how the guys may not obey his order, that they want to object. Having bowed, the men retreated, noting that they could not say anything against the word of the messenger. And then they said, "It is better to stop quarrels and allow the great young man to improve the ashes of the deceased." Our hero thought that let the inhabitants of the dungeon first execute his orders, and they talk about the rest when the time comes. At that moment, a girl who suspected something was wrong with a young man was watching a young man. The brunette performed the ritual, and at the same time some creature said that the beauty aroused him from sleep. But something was wrong with the ceremony. The girl said that everything was fine, because thanks to the help of Essence, they were able to fight back the conquerors. However, the shadow replied that all those intended in the cult have their own tasks, so often no one has time to come and help them. Therefore, no one was sent. The brunette said that a young man with doubles came to them, who helped to cope with ill wishers. And now they plan to improve dust. A shadow noted that there is no such person in the cult of witches, but he killed a man from the Empire, which means that he is now an enemy of the Empire. Hearing about this, the girl said that this young man of unknown origin, and therefore they should kill him. However, the Essence ordered the young man to give as many as he needs, if he, of course, asks for it. Sitting in the dungeon, our hero turned to the servant and said that they would not be lazy, but to do their work efficiently. The guy thought, although all the Imperial heroes were killed, powerful energy was still in their bodies. Thanks to necromancer magic, he would get dust that could restore the energy of the double. Therefore, if young people work hard, he will be able to achieve energy freedom very soon. Seeing the brunette, Linu Lin in an orderly tone asked where she was, and then stated that the girl could also get down to business, like everyone else. Approaching the guy, the beauty asked who the young man was, and also why he made his way to their lair. With calmness in his voice, the young man noted that it was not he made his way, they themselves brought him here. After thinking a little, the beauty decided that this guy was right, but they run ahead. Glancing, the brunette asked for forgiveness for her tactlessness, and said that she wanted to introduce herself again. She is a subordinate witch's desires, and her name is the Bride Li. Our hero decided not to be tactless, and therefore said that his name is the Dark Emperor, deciding not to name the real name, The girl thought that she had never heard about this man before. With joy in her voice, the bride began to note that the Empire was the enemy of their cult, and therefore invited the young man to join them. But only as a guest. Looking at the brunette in surprise, the guy did not understand what was happening. Usually the plot of the dungeon ends immediately after the murder of the boss. And now it seems that it has expanded, and he said aloud if the beauty introduces him the right amount of dust, then he may return with her to the cult of witches, although he thought to himself that he was going too far. The girl asked for a few minutes to go about his business, although the guy offered as much as 20. Hearing how he says that it was she who killed the leader of the Legion, whether the bride noted that the Empire would soon send his soldiers to suppress them, and therefore they must end the Frosty Dragon. And while the young man said that he would kill these people, the brunette explained that the soldiers have the third level of power, and therefore they now have no time to improve the ashes. Looking at the girl, Lin Lo reflected that it was not easy for him to deceive. The spell did not act on her. Understanding that you need to act carefully, our hero said that he would go with the mistress to the cult of witches, to which she replied that she was glad to cooperate. Suddenly, the young man called his wave sword and killed the girl with one movement. At the same time, the system notified this, adding that the young man can count on a good reward. The servants who became involuntary witnesses of what was happening began to shout that they had let the killer let them in. Realizing that the secret was disclosed, Lin turned to his doubles and asked those to deal with everyone who is in this dungeon. One of the older men shouted that the army of evil spirits would leave this land and informed everyone about what had happened, adding that it was better to run. Our hero was about to go after the fugitives, but the invisible power stopped him. The man, standing behind the guy, laughed and said that his voice of death struck the simple killer, and added that the young man is a dead man, trying to do at least something. The young man did not understand where this guy got this ability. Suddenly, the enemy flew far back, noting to himself that the speed of the blow is incredibly high. A person sitting in the corner did not understand what happened, and why his abilities ceased to work. At that moment, our hero felt something unusual. He was embarrassed by the vibration that appeared in the room. The old man understood that he had to do something, and therefore called on the ice dragon, saying that he would come to life. The man understood that this was his only chance, despite the fact that this creature is unfinished. Therefore, he shouted so that the dragon destroyed the vile guy, the killer of the bride Li. Lin Lo understood that a resident of the dungeon woke a creature ahead of time. It actually looked powerful. Not knowing his abilities, we could say that they were supernatural. Although, looking at the panel, the young man understood that this was not so. Of course, to get a dragon would be good, but he had not yet been finalized. And again, the computer announced that it was not even the breath of this animal, but in its roar, which affects the opponent and reduces its combat activity. The guy thought that this healthy man looks very large, but his strength is not much more powerful than that of the master of monsters. If Lin awakens his ability, he would receive a reward earlier until the mission is completed. A moment later, our hero turned to the Dark Emperor and Kagi and said that they would kill the caster. The old man looked at the guy with a severe gaze and said that he would not dare to stand in his way. The man still wanted to say something, but at that moment the dragon's roar was heard. From this sound, Lin Lo and his assistants flew away at a great speed. The Dark Emperor, realizing that they could not control the being, stated that the master be careful, but the young man was not at a loss. He said that everyone could look at how his blade of large wind breaks the icy surge. Jumping on the dragon, our hero shouted that he was ready to make him scream. Lin Lo understood that he would have only one attempt to destroy the beast. At this time, the Dark Emperor dealt with the inhabitants of the dungeon, as he was ordered. The guy managed to make the conceived, and therefore the ice dragon began to growl even more and more frantically. The young man was not going to hesitate, and called on 10,000 swords and a sword of the power of Ki to help, twisting the fire stream. And then our hero began to use all the techniques that he knew, since it was quite difficult to disable a creature. Lin Lo shouted to his assistants so that you were not given the opportunity to relax the caster. The girl, rushing towards the enemy, stated that they realized what she needed to do. Having run up to the old man, the girl called on a fast wind blade and struck a man with one blow. Carefully following everything that was happening, Lin Lu shouted that they had completed part of the work, and now it was necessary to attack the ice dragon. And again, our heroes began to use all their strength in order to defeat the beast. A minute later, the system informed that the player of the Dark Emperor managed to defeat the dragon, and for this, he can count on a large number of bonuses. The guy carefully looked at the result of his work and said that the healthy health scale is impressive, but this reward is worth it. Standing in front of the computer, the young man decided that first he uses all the points of abilities to improve his dexterity, and then add glasses to the ability of 10,000 swords. While this skill continues to improve, energy consumption will ultimately decrease to a minimum. When the energy of the blade is endless, the frequency of attacks will increase. Turning to his associates, the young man noted that they would further see what awards the monster of the boss frames will be discovered. Approaching the edge of the cliff, the young man carefully peered down, hoping to see something there. A moment later, the guy raised his hand and held out it somewhere, about to grab something. Having taken out the sword, Linu said that it was incredible. He did not expect that he could get a diamond-level sword, stating that he himself is God himself. The computer also sent a notification and congratulations that the sword has incredible power. Our hero said that the sword not only increases the power of attack by more than 200 points, but all additional skills as well. The young man did not think that weapons of such a high level could appear in the secret world of the lower level. Most likely, this was due to the fact that Lin last time killed enemies with only one double, and this time with two, as it is difficult to increase the value of awards. The young man, coming closer, decided to see if there is something else for him. The system immediately notified that our hero got the horn of the ice dragon, for which additional points rely. The guy understood that he had received an advanced medicine to restore blood, a medicine for energy restoration, a magic scroll and various equipment, as well as a bunch of coins. The best bonus was a horn. With the help of it, you can cause a level 35 boss. And this is fine, because any boss has excellent skills, and this is the best live shield. Leaving, the young man said that when he returned the next time, he would pick up his jackpot, and now he ordered everyone who remained to improve the ashes of the deceased. Having headed forward, Linu told his associates that the time had come to move on. After some time, at the entrance to the dungeon, Li Tianxi stood. He complained that he had found what he had been looking for so long, but the Dark Emperor was ahead of him again. The man stated, turning to himself, that he did not think that they would fight so soon, but he himself provokes, although he was sure, as soon as he kills the enemy, Liu would do it. People sat in the room on the floor, and the representatives of the law and order stood opposite the closed door. A man squeezing a notebook in his hands thought that his name was Tao. A few days before that, this person gained a new ability to model the future. Then he received the Diary of the Future. This ability gave the right to decide what would happen further around the world. Reading written inside, the young man was horrified because there were his notes, but they wrote them, who was no longer alive, and therefore he wanted to change the course of events. Throwing away the notebook, the guy shouted that he could not die. The whole society was holding on established laws, and therefore he would not allow this to change. The young man shouted that he did not believe in what was written inside, noting that he would begin from the very beginning and will do everything differently. He cried, saying that this diary would make him rethink the path to survival. Go Tao predicted his future in advance, and when they burst into his room, he denied that his name was the same as his name. And then something happened that the guy was the least. Some person came and ordered his assistant to kill him. Again, leafing through the diary, the young man told himself that it was necessary to continue to draw conclusions. He would not allow the past to repeat. And then he remembered that then he took the kitchen knife and attacked the opponents. But they were stronger. It seemed that Tao did not understand where the reality is and where the past, and therefore screamed again so that the opponent did not hide because he wanted to kill him. The man was aware of each scene, realizing that this time everything should be different, although he did not understand how to do it. He noted that he hid far from his enemies, but they still overtook him. Crying, the young man wailed, saying that his prayers for mercy on his knees will not help. Then he thought about what he would not do. He died anyway, even called the police and waited for her killers with her. But nothing changed. Holding the book in his hands, the young man reread the lines again and again, which for some reason, slightly, but changed. Sitting next to the mirror, Gotao began to scream, because it seemed to him that giant beetles began to fly into the room from the mirror. Understanding that something was wrong, the guy closed his head with his hands and thought that he had a hindrance. Suddenly, this man was attracted by a man. Standing on the balcony and looking at the roof of the building that was located opposite, he noted for himself that this person is here. Lin Luo thought that the last from his list was an inspector of the police. The protection of the building was strong, and therefore had to make a desire to pour people out. Our hero stood on the street and watched as a young man held onto the balcony located on the second floor and tried to jump off him. The guy told the Lord of Prayers that it looked like their victim, and therefore asked to stop Zhukov. Moving along the street, the young man and his associates did not understand where the person they saw recently hid. Sitting on the ground, Gotao said that a double is a beautiful woman and she became even more beautiful since the last time. Our hero asked the stranger in bewilderment what he was talking about, and also how he could know that the guy would come to him, and even with assistance. Leaning against the wall, a man with maliciousness in his voice admitted that he had such a gift, to foresee the moment when Lin Law came. The guy carefully looked in front of him and did not know that this is also possible. Holding a notebook in his hands, the young man noted that this is a curse. This gift does not give anything to increase combat power. Yes, you can find out in advance about awards. But whether it is worth it? Coughing, Gotao shouted that the information that was written in the diary of the future is never changing. So what is it, if not a curse? The guy complained that he was tired and therefore did not want to resist anymore. He did not care who our hero was because he knew that he had come for him. The guys carefully looked at the man who asked him to be killed by a beautiful girl, hinting at Kaguya. The young man ordered this to do this to the Dark Emperor, but thought to himself it was necessary so as not to fall into a trap to a man, because it is not clear that he was planning. With horror, looking at the double man, Gotao thought to himself that he would probably die again at the hands of a man in armor, as the last time. The Dark Emperor did not ask anything. He simply struck a man who continued to sit against the wall. Our hero saw a diary that shimmered with blue light and decided that this was an object that would come in handy. At this moment, the system notified that the effective ability turned on, which means that the young man can choose one of several meanings. The young man decided not to take risks, and therefore he wanted to view all his abilities, realizing that he should call for another diary, which he did. Our hero carefully looked into the diary, thinking that something would be about to appear. To the great surprise, Lin did not happen, and therefore he asked the diary of the future to tell him what was waiting in the next 2 days. Suddenly, a text began to appear on the pages, looking at which the guy was glad that at least something appeared. Only a few seconds passed and the text was already printed, but the story surprised the young man even more. It seemed to the young man that he was flying into some kind of prostration. This was due to the fact that the diary said that our hero would die, and so that this would not happen. He must do something. The guy asked himself a question again and again about how he could die. Suddenly, the guy remembered the deceased Gotao, and therefore began to reassure himself, noting that everything new was scared, and also convincing that he could not die. Any ability is important for the player, and Linu has never heard about a life-threatening talent in the past incarnation. Although, perhaps, he missed something important. Our hero began to remember that somewhere he had already heard the name of the Master Liu Yu. He realized, if he had to fight him, he would call the Dark Emperor. Thinking, the young man turned to the Lord of Prayers and said that he wanted to call him. The guy asked the diary to show him an alternative future. At some point, it seemed that reality was distorted, and time freezes because the fire washed out the doubles of Lin Lo. For an incomprehensible reason, the Dark Emperor was not able to move on Earth. The young man again found himself in prostration, where he could read the diary. The future story was different from the current reality, but the result was the same. The young man did not understand why reality had changed so much, but the Vladika explained that everyone has at least one double, and therefore the future was written based on this. Linlo carefully listened to the assistant and decided that he would call all his doubles so that the diary would take this into account and show the most real future. Having called everyone, the guy was convinced that now what was written would be radically different. The ghostly queen asked why the young man called the whole team, noting that he was probably bored of reading alone. The young man asked to observe the silence and carefully looked at the pages. But the result was just as sad. Although the guy did not understand how 5 double-double-doubles could not defeat 1 double-double-double, suddenly, Linu turned to the Dark Emperor and said that he was ready to deliver his head to him. Realizing that the assistant will do everything as it should, the young man froze in anticipation. A second later, a patron appeared, who was indignant that the Dark Emperor did not respect the master, and therefore, perhaps, he should be destroyed once and for all. He, hearing how they insult him, said that he would be happy to see who would destroy and whom. The young man realized that now everything would be different again, and therefore asked for a diary to tell what was waiting for him. Some huge shadow of the warrior took into her hand our hero, who was horrified to follow what was happening. At the same time, the whole team lay face down on the ground. It was impossible to say in what state they were. Looking at the diary, the guy thought, is there really no other way out, except not to go to a secret dungeon? he would have to retreat. But there must be a way out. The guy was not used to throwing the case halfway, and therefore asked Vladika which tactics to use to win Liu Yu. The young man said that their last hope is an unborn moving fruit. Holding the egg in his hands, Linu again asked the diary the same familiar question. The guy smiled. Finally, the information said that the warrior was lucky in all his affairs. He knew for sure that he could win any fight, and therefore he was looking forward to him. Our hero understood that the problem is what emotion he should choose as a source of birth of a moving fetus. Not understanding what to do next, the young man again turned to Lao Qi and asked how he could kill Liu Yu. Vladika looked into his book and thought, it seemed that for him and for himself it was a mystery. Closing the notebook, the young man noted that the master's desire would take away all his energy and then he will go into silence. The gap between S level and SSS is too large, and judging by the diary, this Liu Yu should have some other methods of struggle. Linu thought to himself that he was obliged to prepare well for battle, and he said aloud that they would go to prison to give his brother the Ascension Crystal. Then his abilities will be S. At this moment, the guards standing on the observation deck actively shot at Zhukov. Law enforcement officers did everything possible, but insects did not become less. It seemed that these huge monsters were about to attack, because they were approaching from all sides. Closing their heads with his hands, one of their guards noted that this time they definitely could not cope with the whole flock. Suddenly, a dark emperor jumped out of nowhere, who began to deal with beetles in one movement, as if it was something insignificant. Two policemen said with hope that most likely they would still be saved. Lin Luo, who tamed one of the beetles, introduced himself and said that he needed to meet his older brother Zhou Shindong. The guard said that the young man could pass, and also thanked that for salvation, and noted that after a meeting, the head of the prison asked the guy to look into his office. Our hero timidly approached the transparent glass. He was confused as much as possible. The young man, who was sitting opposite, joyfully and at the same time restrained, greeted his brother. He smiled in response, saying that they had not seen each other for a very long time. Zhou Shendong immediately began to talk about the fact that the city is unsafe now, and then the guy should call someone to help so that he was not so lonely. Lin Lo understood that his brother did not know anything about him, and therefore hastened to calm him down, explaining that everything was in order. The young man asked if someone of our hero offends, and then stated that he would come out soon, and then everything would be fine. However, after a few minutes, he said that he did not understand how much time passed and what he could do at all. Zhou Shandong remembered the conversation with the head of the prison, who spoke if the young man agrees to his conditions, the sentence will be softened. Hearing about how his brother talks about justice and that he would intercede for Lin Lu, he noted that the young man had not changed at all, and, after a little hesitant, he explained that now no one had time for him, and also that he brought a gift with which the guy could get out very soon. The prisoner did not understand what was at stake, and therefore asked again. In the next instant, something unusual happened. The young man felt the warmth of fire covering it. The guard, standing behind our hero, immediately responded and directed the weapon, asked what Lin Lu had done. Smiling, the young man explained that he had given something to his brother, but this something disappears as soon as he enters the body, and therefore he did not violate any of the rules. Zhou Shendong did not understand what was happening to him, and at this moment the system informed that now the level of ability and increases to level S. The guard, having calmed down a little, said that their prisoner was on fire. At that very moment, a huge white warrior appeared in the room, which reported that he was ready to serve his master. Turning around, the young man asked if now the Knight of the Red Lotus S is his level. Laughing, Lin Lo explained that thanks to this assistant, his brother will be able to conscientiously serve in prison and get a softening of the sentence. However, he, picking up, began to scream and ask what the young man had done, that the level of his abilities increased so sharply, and offered to take this gift to himself. Our hero reassured his relative and said that he would not worry about him, because he will take care of himself about himself. Everything that happened in a date for dates through the camera was transmitted to the laptop. A man sitting in an armchair carefully watched the communication of two brothers. The head of the prison said aloud, "All this is very interesting because the guy could increase the level of other person's ability." Not having time to talk about everything, Lin was interrupted by the guard. He recalled that the guy was waiting for the head of the prison. In the end, he told Zhou Shandunu so that he would not worry because no one else dares to touch them, and, leaving, once again said that he would come to visit the prisoner again. But he should not relax, but must do everything that depends on him to get out as early as possible. In the corridor, the guard reminded the young man that he was waiting for a boss who said that there was a way to help his brother. Trying to maintain the most indifferent look, Lin Lu thought to himself that the bait was swallowed. In less than a few minutes, and the policeman had already reported to the overseer that he brought a young man, the man specified the name of our hero, and then said that his name is Duan Qingfeng, and he was responsible for the prison. At this time, the young man thought that in prison no one had a level higher A, but when there was an opportunity to improve the level, no one would want to miss her. The man, crossing his fingers, asked if the guy knew what was happening with his brother's affair. The young man did not understand what was the matter, and therefore clarified whether there were any problems with the investigation. Even in a past life, our hero knew that something was wrong with his brother. Sorry that then he was not strong enough to learn more about it. Duan Qingfeng asked a rhetorical question regarding what business can be investigated and added that the guy was simply used as a weapon. The excited young man asked the boss to tell all the details in return for the murder of monsters beetles, as well as the protection of the prison. In the meantime, Lin Luo was thinking about what he had to take revenge on his brother. Duan Qingfeng said that there was no sense in the murder of beetles. They would still be caught soon, and in a more severe tone, he noted that thanks to the surveillance cameras, he witnessed the awakening of the prisoner's double. Having called the head of the prison to himself an old fox, our hero understood that, most likely, this person was interested in the Ascension Crystal. The guy was not afraid of anything, and therefore said that the story told is not worth what the man wants. And if so, then Lin Lu himself will know everything. Drinking tea, Duan Qingfeng asked, but how, in this case, the softening of the sentence, which everyone is waiting for? The young man looked in amazement at the man sitting opposite him, and he continued to speak. If the young man gives him a magical thing, then they will be able to discuss what is important for him. Linu Lo was not at a loss and again said that everything was fine. But at first he should find out what was hiding behind his brother's affair. Hearing the man began the conversation with the fact that Joshin Duna was substituted by the Van Group, the guy thought that this was the largest company in their city. But at that moment the young man was not interested in this. But why the police and the prison chief did nothing to help the innocent? And he stated that they live in the country where the law rules, and all the evidence directly pointed to the brother of our hero, and therefore sentenced him. Only after some time did the boss learn that another company was behind this case. At that time, someone clearly had doubts that they really pressed the judge so that the verdict was carried out quickly and for a long time. Getting up from his place, Duan Qingfeng spoke that Linu Lin should forget about the place forever. And he added that even if a young man arouses his abilities of Class S in himself, he still will not be able to resist the most powerful corporation in the country. And, patting our hero on the shoulder, he said that now he would call the conditions that the guy should agree to help his brother.